Canada Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots, their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
And God bless America.
Calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Here's the moment you've all been waiting for. Here is Devolution.
Devolution.
With Intel Patriot.
The best is yet to come.
Congrats on this. I like this show. The Power Hour. That's got a good sound to it.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. Hope you guys are all doing well. Kyle is streaming from a bathroom, I'm convinced.
We had a big fight about this before the show, guys. So.
Those are towels.
They're not towels.
The placement of that sunflower, though, is bothering me. It's like directly on the crown of your head.
I can't have a sunflower on my head. You don't think that's good? That doesn't work for me.
All right, we'll allow it for this.
It does look a little silly now that I see it.
Yeah. I haven't been able to find a really great place in here at this place to stream, except for outside. Outside is wonderful, but now it's dark. So,
well, I like your choice of the bathroom because the acoustics are really nice in there.
Okay. It's not a bathroom. Look, there is a fireplace, a TV.
That's a nice freaking bathroom.
Couch.
Jeez.
It's not a bathroom.
Yeah, I have a fireplace.
Like hardwood floors in there, and a padded toilet. Jeez,
it's amazing, dude.
Must be heated, electric heated floors. I bet. That's nice.
Notice how he didn't scan the entire place. So.
Yep.
All right, there is a lamp. Expert lighting. Here you go. There's the whole room. You see there you go. See,
it's the entryway to the bathroom. That's what it is.
Right.
It goes to
it's the bathroom foyer.
Okay, well then now I'm even more curious. Like, why do they have towels in a random bedroom?
They're quilts. They're quilts.
No.
If I was cold, I'd have one on, but it's actually really hot. It's been over 100 here every day.
Well, anyway, guys, should be a fun show tonight. We got lots to discuss. We are going to go through the SCOTUS stuff and what didn't happen. Some of what did, some of what didn't. We'll get into Assange, and we will do the Hunter Biden laptop report that came out of one of the oversight committees. So that'll be fun. There's some interesting nuggets in there, but most of it's like old news, like months ago, many months ago, old news. And then we'll do a little debate preview and see what other shenanigans we can get into.
Kyle has agreed to impersonate Joe Biden.
Yeah.
John will be Donald Trump, and I will be Jake Tapper.
No, I'd like to be the moderator because I control the mute.
All right, fine.
Which is revolution. Did you see CNN did like a whole 2-minute thing where they explained to people how a mute works?
No, I did not see that.
You guys didn't see that? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Who is it? Is it Tapper and like Dana Bash?
Yeah, Jake Tapper, who once called Trump Hitler, and then Dana Bash, whose husband still has a CIA is it security clearance? And was he one of the people who signed the letter? Even I'm pretty sure he was one of the 51 agents.
Yes. No, wait. I'm trying to remember. It was the deputy, though. I think it was. Okay. You're talking about the lady at CNN, right? She was married to the deputy chief of staff at the CIA for someone who signed the letter. I think.
For Brennan.
Yeah.
Dana Bash's ex-husband was an operative for the CIA when he signed the infamous 2020 letter to Politico discrediting the Hunter Biden laptop.
Okay, ex-husband. So a little bit of fake news on my end, but you guys get the point. Anyway, I'll show you the revolutionary new mute technology that was unleashed today, and then we'll get into everything else. But first, before we do any of that, we got to give a quick shout out to the sponsors of tonight's show. First up, we got EasyRx. We'd like to thank the folks at EasyRx for sponsoring our show tonight. They've helped so many Badlanders get the medications they need without breaking the bank. As 2024 fires up for the summer and seems to be a rerun of 2020, it's the perfect time to stock up on the suppressed medications and get your family ready for anything they will throw at us. EasyRx has a wide variety of high-quality medications like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, fenbendazole, and so many more. The fake news is getting more exposed every day, and people are waking up to the truth about health and many inexpensive life-saving meds. You'll find them all right here at EasyRx. The process is simple, the shipping is fast, and the prices are unbeatable. So breathe easy knowing that you and your family are prepared for anything. Don't wait any longer. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx. Use promo code Badlands for 10% off your purchase of $150 or more. That's badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx. And thank you to EasyRx for being one of tonight's sponsors. Burning Bread, have you tried like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine for your Lyme disease?
I do have ivermectin. I do not have hydroxychloroquine. So, I mean, the only reason I stopped taking it is because I had to get on a round of antibiotics back in January that like nuked my whole system. But yes, I do have some from EasyRx actually.
That a boy.
I've not tried HCQ.
That a boy. Yeah. I got ivermectin too. I used to have it in the pill format, but now I just have it in the horse paste format, which is still effective.
I still have some horse paste kicking around, but it's not quite the same as just having some tablets.
Doesn't taste. It's not fun. Not fun to take it that way. I would recommend the pill format, but if you got the horse paste, that's fine too. And then another way you can break away from big pharma is with CBD from cbdistillery.com. Let me guess, your medicine cabinet is crammed with stuff that doesn't work. You still aren't sleeping. You still hurt. And you're still stressed out. That's how it was for me. So I cleared out my cabinet and reset my health with CBD from CB Distillery. It's been a real game changer. CB Distillery's targeted formulations are made from the highest quality clean ingredients. No fluff, no fillers, just pure, effective CBD solutions designed to help support your health. In 2 non-clinical surveys, 81% of customers experienced more calm. 80% said CBD helped with pain after physical activity. And an impressive 90% said they slept better with CBD. So if you struggle with any of those health concerns, you haven't found relief yet, make the change like I did to CB Distillery. And they have over 2 million satisfied customers and a solid 100% money back guarantee. They are the source to trust. You can get a 20% discount to get you started. Go to cbdistillery.com. Use promo code DPH for 20% off. That's cbdistillery.com, promo code DPH, 20% off, and you can support this show specifically. All right, guys, I want to find this. First, actually, let's start with this video because I thought this was insane. And I don't know if you guys saw this yet, but just a sign of the economic times and something that Trump needs to harp on tomorrow at the debate. Not trying to tell what Trump wants to do, but he's going to do fantastic. But check this out.
I feel like I'll go be sick. I just looked through my Walmart history and I found this Walmart order from 2 years ago for the whole month worth of groceries. 45 items cost $126. A whole month of groceries just for me, basically. But I did notice this reorder all button, and I wanted to see how much it would cost now. Now, this order of 45 items for 1 month would have cost $414. That is 4 times more. How the fuck? How? What?
One of the main themes of this devolution period we've been talking about is the Great Awakening, right? Like people waking up and coming over to Trump's side and being upset when they steal the election. Whether that last part is how it goes down, we don't know. But we've been saying one of the biggest things that's going to wake people up that affects everybody is the wallet, their money. And we are essentially reaching like a critical mass period here where you can't hide the economy with these fake CPI numbers that Biden team is putting out anything. Housing prices are up. Nobody's buying houses. Loans, like to get a loan is almost impossible. Interest rates are high. And then just cost of goods, inflation is killing people. And that video I thought was just insane. I had to share it.
Yeah, for me, the was going to make that point about the CPI. I mean, obviously, inflation itself is big. It hits everybody in the wallet, like you said. That causes people to wake up. But I think the key thing to think about is what are people waking up to, right? It sounds so obvious to people in this community, but I think it's worth trying to apply that framing and that question in your mind when you're looking at, oh, something bad is occurring under Biden. People are waking up. And we say that a lot. But it's worth going, what are they waking up to? It's not enough that people go, oh, stuff is expensive and Joe Biden is the president. That helps. I mean, that's good. It's a good thing that people are conflating this stuff with the Biden presidency. The bigger thing, though, is don't believe your lying eyes. You see a lot of memes about this, even in the normie internet, where you've got the experience, the living experience of Americans is that shit is 400% more expensive, 100% more expensive, whatever, however you want to parse that, things feel extremely expensive right now. I've been reading a lot of Business Insider recently, looking for stuff for the news brief. And I was reading an article there the other day talking about how 6 figures is not enough in like 46 states right now to live what is considered a baseline comfortable life where you can actually feed yourself and comfortably pay your bills. So it's certainly not relegated to lower income people or anything like that. People are delaying marriages, they're delaying all this kind of stuff, they're delaying weddings, they're canceling weddings, and these are people that have 2 working couples that are making near 6 figures each. But it's not just the CPI, it's starting to get normal people to wake up to who tells you what the CPI is, who is in charge of pulling out items from the CPI so you don't notice them anymore, which they obviously do. They've pulled cigarettes out of there. They've pulled gasoline out of there. Anything that gets too expensive and inflates the numbers to actual inflation that you see in a Walmart cart is being taken out of CPI. So these are like conspiracy 101 or truth 101 to a lot of people in this world. But how many of your normie friends just started talking about CPI or the Federal Reserve and government printing of money in the last 6 months? It's probably a lot.
Yeah, this is one of the key ways that people grow up is they find out how expensive living is, right? So all these young people that maybe voted for Biden in 2020 are now finding out that voting has consequences and things are more expensive. But I do think that regardless of who was president, we would have gone through a time of economic price increases and inflation because of our economy recovering from COVID, right? So the whole COVID experience and the lockdowns, everything we went through, there would have been economic struggles for the years, like up until now. There would have been struggles, and then you're going to start seeing a lot of the economy come back just in time for president to win a 3rd term, right? So it's like Biden hasn't done anything to make the economy better except for like release stuff from our strategic reserves that actually harms our national security while lowering gas prices by like a quarter for about 3 weeks, right? So he does that right before driving season, right? That's what he did. Yeah. And but he keeps on he hasn't done anything to make the economy better. He certainly made it worse. But I think it's funny to me, like just here we are going towards the election. It's funny to me to look at how things have been set up to where Biden is once again left holding the bag that nobody would want to be left holding, which is America has to recover post-COVID. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a few years for us to get back to normal like we were in 2019. Biden, why don't you go ahead and be the face of that recovery? And then it goes poorly for him. And even if it was going well, right? Like even if it was going well, our media would make sure to report it bad. Like, I mean, Trump, MAGA media, conservatives, we make sure to like point the home that it's bad. But Biden's made it really easy for us because he keeps on doing stuff that make the economy worse. So it's like we're telling the truth about the economy, of course, that it's bad, but it's like double bad for Biden. It's a double punch. And Trump is just sitting over there like, not only am I not getting blamed for any of this, even though Operation Warp Speed, for example, could be used to kind of scapegoat a little bit of what's happened under Biden's watch. Trump's sitting there looking like the guy who knows how to bring America back to prosperity. And the country is set up for a wave of prosperity and growth over the next 5 years, and just in time for Trump to take office again. So it's like this big red pill because everybody's having to buy all this stuff and spend all this money. It's a big red pill, but it's also this beautiful setup for Trump's next term.
Yeah, and that's perfect too, because the way Biden is like the face of the recovering economy, like it kind of has to be this way. He's the same face for so many other things that only could have happened with Trump out of office, like the Russian invasion of Ukraine, whatever had to be done in the Middle East. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yep, same
where Biden is eating crow essentially, and he's going to be the face of election fraud too. I believe that as well. Like he's going to be the face of career corrupt politicians getting elections stolen for him. But that's like the final shoe to drop.
I know that we've said this too on the show. It's one of the ways we talk about Operation Warp Speed. That we've redefined or used that same term with the financial sector and many of these sectors. But when you talk about Biden being the face of it, I always use the analogy of like the Spider-Man 2 scene where it wasn't just that Trump forced Biden to inherit a system that Patriots knew needed reform and was on the edge. They helped that train get a little bit faster. Or if you think of another analogy, like a Jenga tower, when Trump was in his presidency, the tower is standing, but he was pulling blocks out of that the whole time. Trump was the one who printed the stimmies. He was the one who got the Trump bucks into everybody's pockets. He was the one who kicked off the money printing accelerator like by a factor of 10, like we've never seen before. And again, I always caveat, I don't say that as a bad thing. I say he was pulling those blocks out because he knew the tower needed to fall down. And if he didn't accelerate the money printing, the other side that inherited the administration, they would have been able to keep those Jenga pieces together longer, probably entering another Trump term. So he needed it to not just accelerate, he needed it to come down during Biden, and he helped it along.
And isn't it kind of the case that Biden is stuck with this thing where he needs to go out and tell people how good he's done with the economy so they'll want to vote for him and all these things that he's going to do to fix it. But they don't believe him. So then he's going to turn around and try and blame Trump. And there might actually be some merit to the claims he makes about how it's Trump's fault. But nobody believes him because it just sounds like he's trying to blame the last guy. They're going to be like, dude, you've had 4 years and it's just gotten worse every year. It's totally your fault. Get out.
It goes back to when Trump was in office. I think it was before he got in there. Obama had the quote about, there's no magic wand to fix the economy, right? And then once the economy started turning around, they're like, oh, this is all Obama who did this, right?
Yes.
And so they're going to do the same thing. I mean, you can play clips like that all the time. Their campaign, though, the Biden campaign, is resorting to just straight up lies. Like they're coming out saying, I saw Kamala Harris had a tweet or something like, oh, if Trump gets in there, you're going to see a national abortion ban, which is like a straight up falsehood, not even close to true. Trump never said he would do that. Trump said he was against doing that. It's up to the states. But they're just going to resort to straight up falsity. Anyway, I want to play this video too. It's like a minute or so long. And this is what they're going to do at the debate tomorrow, which is going to be hilarious. By the way, guys, we are going to be covering the debate here on Badlands. We have a whole bunch of hosts that are going to be on there. We might even do some sort of like rotation halfway through, but we will be covering it. Make sure you guys are watching. We'll get the link posted probably this evening. But here is the new technology being explained to people. It's fucking hilarious.
If we go behind the podiums, you can see 2 green lights. When they're on, they signal to the candidate his microphone is on. When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone is off. Now I want to give you a sense of what it will look like for viewers at home if a candidate whose microphone is off interrupts a candidate whose microphone is on. So I'm standing at one podium, and I'll ask Phil to come in and take the other podium. And so let's say I'm answering a question. My light is green, and I'm speaking. Phil's microphone is off, and his green lights are not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
Let's try the opposite. My microphone is now on. Victor's microphone is off, and he's going to interrupt me. My volume remains constant, while Victor's interruption can be difficult to understand. CNN's production team has shared this demonstration with the campaigns earlier today, and we're sharing it with you, our viewers, so everyone fully understands how tomorrow night will work. Now, we should note, by agreeing to participate in this debate, both campaigns and candidates have also agreed to abide by these rules. The CNN presidential debate airs live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
I just thought it was so funny. Like people don't know what a mute button is, and so we're going to explain the mute to you. But yeah, they're really highlighting this, so I expect to see probably quite a bit of that thing being used. CNN also has threatened, I don't know if it was legal action against anybody who carries coverage of the debate, which is insane. Like anybody should have access to this information. So we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it on Rumble and X, and let the chips fall where they may.
I think that's actually, and we'll see what happens. I mean, the proof's going to be in the pudding on Thursday night, but CNN, this stuff feels so coordinated. And when I say that, I mean for exposure. How far does Patriot control go? How far do Ghost in the Machine go? But I make the rounds in the mainstream media all the time, looking for news items for me and Ghost and Ash and all that kind of stuff. And So I just like picking up on, they're obviously all going to talk about the big topics of the day. They're going to talk about that there's a debate. But I find it interesting when they're all forwarding very similar rhetorical questions. And something I noticed today was, I think it was The Hill, Politico, and then a couple other ones like Newsweek. They all did write-ups, not just on the debate, but specifically on the focus on CNN moderating the debate. Other media, other narrative setters in the establishment, there were headlines like, "This is CNN's moment to demonstrate, to prove itself. This could be a rebranding effort out of CNN," because the rest of the media is acknowledging that their brand has been catastrophically harmed by themselves during the Trump era. So it's kind of, it's just weird the way it's all setting up. And then you've got CNN coming out and threatening, like you said, John, censorship. And then you get responses pretty directly to that by Elon Musk on Twitter, on X, who said this stuff's protected under DMCA, or rather, it's not, whichever way that goes, that he's going to let people carry it, and CNN can, eat shit. And then you had Chris at Rumble. He didn't put out a direct message against CNN, but he said, this is going to be a big thing for Rumble. And the implication I took out of that was this could be one of those inflection points where, again, people are going to be freaking out if and when CNN starts copyright claiming Tim Pool and all the retards on YouTube. But the benefit of that is going to be they're all going to start looking at these other platforms, the people who have been collecting their YouTube shekels, and all of a sudden they're not able to cover the biggest political event so far of the year. Meanwhile, if they had been broadcasting on maybe some other platforms, they could have. So that's something I'm watching.
I don't know.
My take on that video just now is, one, that was stupid and it made me feel like I was a child. Two, I'm thankful they did that because they just trapped themselves into, this is how we're supposed to do it. So now the whole audience knows this is the way the mute button is supposed to function in this debate. Let's see if it really does work out that way. Let's see if CNN really does hold true to what that demonstration showed us, right?
Yeah.
And then three, Trump's mic is always hot. And I'm talking about the one he's wearing under his suit. So it doesn't matter if his mic is muted. It's still going to get recorded what he said.
Also, what I'm thinking of the setup there, like Biden will still be able to hear Trump when Trump is like talking.
So watch him
I think
start
that's going
responding.
to throw him off and make him sound insane when he's talking like to nobody. Like it'll be, that might be really good. But I'm glad we kind of touched on the debate a little bit because it's kind of going to be a theme throughout all of these other topics, especially considering some timing stuff. So we should get into SCOTUS, Kyle. We had
our first topic.
Yeah, we had two rulings dropped today, and none of them are immunity. But let's just go ahead. You have the floor. Let's talk about this a little bit. And now, Brett, you had a point tying it to the debate a little bit.
Okay, yeah, we got two opinions from SCOTUS today. We were expecting Wednesday. Originally, the Wednesday today was the last day SCOTUS had anything on their schedule before their summer break that starts on June 30th or the end of June, whatever it is. So it looked like today was going to be the day. But they added in, they only put out two decisions, and then they added opinion days tomorrow and Friday. And so the two opinions we get, so SCOTUS keeps on kicking this immunity ball. There's a reason for it, I'm sure. But the two decisions we got today are opinions. One is this case called Snyder, which had to do with public corruption. Some people are upset about it. They basically narrowed the view of public corruption when it's a certain type, and they brought it in line with some of what the state laws were that were at issue in the case. So it's not like SCOTUS just said it's okay to take bribes now. That's not what they said. They just said that things were a bit broad on the way this case was with this particular mayor or governor, whoever he was. And also DOJ agreed that it was applied too broadly in that instance. That's that Snyder decision. The other one that everybody's talking about from today is the Missouri one.
Hold on. Before we go on to the Missouri one, that first one, from my understanding, didn't they basically say like you can't take bribes, but you can take gratuities or like tips?
Yeah. So it like there's gratuities and gifts and tips and stuff. And it was already, it was already regulated under the state laws. The state laws already covered it, and then the prosecution used this other law and said that under this one, this counts as corruption, and they applied it too broadly, is what SCOTUS said. So I can't get too deeply into it. I can only give you that broad take of it. That they narrowed. It's like section 666 or something. Literally, it is 666, and they narrowed it to where how it can be applied.
Yeah, now it's just 6.6. They narrowed it that far. No, my understanding of it, I read one article on it, is like they can't take bribes. They can take tips or gratuities as long as it happens after the fact, like after the act is done and they're out of office. So like that to me, like that's just a sneaky way to hide a bribe. Like you just like, yeah, well, here's an IOU when you're out of office. We'll give you this. But I mean, honestly, that's already taking place. Like how many of these government officials leave government and go to some big corporation, some defense contractor, and they're just getting reams of money for stuff that they were doing in office. You know what I mean?
And I do think SCOTUS was cognizant of that, which is why in the opinion they said if Congress wants to tighten this up, then they should pass legislation that does. We're just telling you that as you apply what the legislation already is, that has been passed, with the statute that already exists this is too broad. That's what that's what they're saying.
Okay. Now Missouri versus Murphy.
On the Missouri, it is Missouri v. Biden, but then it got appealed to SCOTUS and became Murphy v. Missouri and all, something like that. So it is the Missouri v. Biden case that we've all become familiar with and that we've gotten so many good things out of, right? And the Fifth Circuit gave that injunction about social media censoring people and against all these federal agencies. So SCOTUS, people are pretty upset about this decision, and I can't give you my complete take on this opinion because I'm only partway through reading it. I've scanned it, but I'm trying to do a very diligent read of it and really think about what is being said in it. What is at issue is the censorship that we experienced in 2020, where government agencies and third-party organizations influenced and one word being used in this case is coerced and encouraged social media companies to censor and remove posts or remove accounts that violated such things. And so we all understand what that is in the storyline with that. The opinion on this, the majority opinion is written by Comey Barrett. And people are big mad at her right now because it's her, Kavanaugh, and Roberts sided with the liberals that the Fifth Circuit got it wrong. And that the plaintiffs didn't have standing, one. Two, the plaintiffs did not prove that the injury to them was direct from the government. It was indirect. Three, they didn't prove that they were at risk of future injury. And so they're saying that the Fifth Circuit got it wrong and they're kicking it back down. And it is a lack of standing thing, but it's also they didn't demonstrate the harm that they said happened to them and it wasn't direct, and they didn't demonstrate that it was likely to happen again. Like I said, I'm still working my way through this. So far, reading ACB's opinion, I can understand what she's saying because her point that she seems to be making is that, look, these social media companies that were raised in this case, and something that's hard for us guys, something that's hard for us is that we're consuming all of this news information for years on end from all of our favorite sources, right? And we've all developed our opinions and been familiar with all of this censorship. SCOTUS can only look at what is presented to them. They can't look at all of the stuff that we are aware of. They can't go back and be like, oh, I remember a story from the Washington Times that really spelled out how bad this censorship. They can't do that. They can only look at what is presented to them. And what Amy Comey Barrett said was presented to her wasn't enough. And what was presented to her demonstrated that the social media companies already had these policies in place prior to, and were engaging in this type of behavior prior to government agencies communicating with them and encouraging them and flagging things for them. So that she's not saying that's okay. She's saying that doesn't help the plaintiff's case that they were singled out directly by the government and these agencies for censorship, it's very difficult to make that case when these platforms were already doing this to you anyway.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so that's what I'm getting from her. And I think that's like really, that seems to be one of the main arguments she's making is, look, you could arrive at this same thing just based on what the platform's policies already were and their behaviors already were. Bringing in the government, so far there hasn't been a thing that says this agency directly targeted these accounts and like made these posts or told these social media companies do this or else or whatever. But like, I just got to caution everybody. I'm only talking about the majority opinion. That's what she's saying. I haven't gotten to Alito and Gorsuch and anybody else in their dissents. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I'm just telling you what Amy Coney Barrett said in her opinion.
I'm going to kind of do a little briefer summary of my understanding of this. So
sure,
the case isn't over. Like there was this case is ongoing. They're suing because the government was reaching out to social media companies to get people banned, and then there was an injunction applied for, or a judge ruled that there was an injunction where the government cannot contact any of these social media companies, and that is what this ruling is about. So the Supreme Court comes in and says that injunction is inaccurately applied or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically saying because we can't predict the future, we don't know, there's no like proof that this is for sure going to happen, where the government is going to be reaching out to social media companies and banning accounts.
There were also third parties involved here that weren't named in the lawsuit. That was another problem with the standing.
Correct. But that's just what this ruled on, is where essentially the government can do that. They can still be reaching out to social media companies. The case itself is still ongoing. This was just about that injunction. I bet you money we're going to see this case at SCOTUS again in the future.
Yes.
I was gonna say on that point, John, before the show, I had mentioned one of the other patterns I saw in recent weeks in the media was the seeding, even before this decision came down, of Amy Coney Barrett getting into conflict in a shouting match with Alito and going against the other conservative members of the Supreme Court. This was all sourced reporting, of course, out of Politico and all the rest of them. So they were seeding this narrative of dissent among the conservative majority, and then it seemingly is then codified with an announcement like this. But to John's point there, what I took away from this, you've kind of got to approach this. People might call this a faith-based or hopium argument, but I think it's pretty damn logical. If you think there's any kind of plan going on, even if it's not the Q plan and some military intelligence plan, you think Donald Trump did things for a reason, you do have to remind yourselves of who he appointed. And you kind of go back to that at the end of the day and think, did he really appoint people that he had no idea what they were going to do? I'm not saying he's directly puppeteering them, but do I believe that Amy Coney Barrett is actually completely ideologically separated now and she's staging a rebellion? You know, I use the media, the establishment media, as a reverse indicator, not because everything they say is not factual, because some of it is factual, but based on the narratives they're trying to push. You usually can play the opposite game with that. They are trying to convince us that there is dissent within the conservative majority of the Supreme Court to demoralize the MAGA base. Well, does that seem likely? On this case, it looks like it might so far, except this looks more like Amy Coney Barrett saying, when we rule on this seismic of a decision regarding an administration reaching out to social media companies, we want to do so with a way better case than Gateway Pundit bitching about getting fact-checked on Twitter. You know, it's like that's more, you know, and it works both ways. Right now, it allows people to doom out. It allows the establishment to say, look, they're ruling in favor of the Biden administration, where, to John's framing of it, they're not ruling in favor of the Biden administration. They're saying, hey, go back home, work on this. Maybe other parties that are much bigger and much more directly affected by this can come forward, because when the Supreme Court rules on something that obviously sets the precedent of the nation regarding these issues, they want a much more rock-solid foundation of damages to work from. So I absolutely agree that it's going to come back in the future. And in the meantime, the media is going to run with this and just push all the FUD. And one more point on the narrative of them saying the conservative majority is split right now. This is a good thing for Donald Trump because this same media has been trying to forward the narrative that Trump stacked the Supreme Court with MAGA loyalists, right?
Right.
So now the same establishment is saying that those MAGA loyalists are all fighting with each other about what to do here. And I bet they're going to do the same thing when it comes to presidential immunity. That's good. That's good for Trump because it completely draws a line of demarcation between these conservative justices and Donald Trump.
I agree with what you're saying, but I don't think they care. Like, no matter how they would have ruled on this and then later on immunity, if it's ever pro-Trump, they're going to put the same talking points out there. But that's why they're irrelevant. I don't even know if I necessarily disagree from what I read with this case.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my understanding of Amy Coney Barrett's point here is like basically the defense, or is the plaintiffs, is that
the plaintiffs? Yeah.
The plaintiffs, that's the side against the Biden administration. Yeah. So the plaintiffs didn't make a good enough argument as to why the injunction they're seeking was so broad.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you don't make a good enough argument in court and a judge puts an injunction in place that shouldn't have been there, that's what the Supreme Court is there for. Again, it doesn't mean that we're not going to get that back. And honestly, like, guys, I know this sucks. I know we're being censored. Like, we are very clearly victims of this. But leading into this election, that's not the worst thing in the world, because again, it just exposes more government corruption. Like, we're not going to get the even playing field we're seeking anyway at this point in time, not until Trump's back. Like, they might as well just put the pedal to the metal right now and make it as obvious to everybody as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I don't think this issue actually can be fixed until we have a digital Bill of Rights.
Yeah, maybe.
I really don't think you can actually apply a real solution until we have a digital Bill of Rights, which Trump has floated and people around him have said this is a really important thing. But I have to admit a little bit of bias here with ACB, because what she said in this opinion is very similar to what I said when those Twitter files first came out and we started seeing those communications between different agencies with the platforms. I said, I'm waiting to see something that looks like direct communication from an agency telling the platform, do a thing or else. Like, the government is telling you, not this person is saying, hey, we're flagging this post out of concern, or hey, this right here needs your attention. I know there were some individuals where it was like this person was saying, but I'm talking about a government agency putting out a notice to a platform telling them, you must remove these things.
Yeah, it's all been staffers. It's all been DMs between staffers.
It's been staffers and DMs. And see, the thing is, they were already primed to do it. And, you know, that's I remember us having that conversation when the Twitter files came out, is that you're dealing with platforms that were staffed by radical leftists who already had policies that they were aimed at censoring political speech they disagreed with. They were already motivated on their own to censor people they disagreed with. And they were doing it secretly on their own just for fun and kicks, right? Like, they were manipulating the platforms anyway, just as leftists do. And so when somebody from the government shows up and says, hey, we have concerns about stuff that fits into this category or is mentioning these topics, or we have concerns about election interference and misinformation, those leftists were like, thank you for the permission slip to go be the hall monitor on Twitter, because I love being a hall monitor. And that's what they were going to be doing anyway. Now they get to be a hall monitor and say, well, the FBI told me to be one. Right. So it's just like, I read Amy Coney Barrett and I'm like, yeah, this sounds familiar. And I'm also like, this makes practical sense to me. It makes practical sense to me. But I can also see the argument is like, whoa, this creates a very, very slippery and dangerous setup where government agencies can engage in censorship. Where's the line? Where is the line? And that's what isn't determined here. That's what wasn't determined, as far as I understand, in this opinion.
Yeah,
is that they didn't find the line between what the agencies can communicate to the platforms and what they can't.
And also, guys, I'm going to read a quote here from the Amy Coney Barrett decision here. But keep in mind, even if it's something that might be logical and legitimate, like her ruling here, I do feel is a legitimate, like, her explanation of it makes total sense to me as why this injunction was overturned. That doesn't mean we still can't use it in the narrative warfare to say like,
oh sure,
Biden administration gonna censor. I mean, we know they're doing it anyway, but and that's what we've seen a lot of on Twitter over this ruling is people upset about it. But let me read.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, while the record reflects that the government defendants played a role, let me put my glasses on, played a role in at least some of the platform's moderation choices, the evidence indicates that the platforms had independent incentives to moderate content and often exercise their own judgment. The Fifth Circuit, by attributing every platform decision, at least in part, to the defendants, glossed over complexities in the evidence. Am I boring you again, Bernie Brett? This is 2 weeks in a row that you've yawned.
This is great stuff.
I agree. The Fifth Circuit also erred by treating the defendants, plaintiffs, and platforms each as a unified whole, and I think this is the big one. The plaintiffs fail, by and large, to link their past social media restrictions and the defendants' communications with the platforms. The state plaintiffs, Louisiana and Missouri, refer only to action taken by Facebook against a Louisiana state representative post about children and COVID-19 vaccine, but they never say when Facebook took action against the official's post, a critical fact in establishing a causal link. And then here, they highlight restrictions imposed by Twitter and LinkedIn, but point only to Facebook's communications with White House officials. It's like, I mean, I feel like that's a sloppy lawsuit. Like if you're going to try to get Facebook or Twitter and LinkedIn to stop communicating with the government, but not show where they actually did that in the past or why they might do it in the future again, like that, why is this a bad ruling? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But again, we'll see this again in the future.
I like that Kyle brought up the Digital Bill of Rights, because you can start to see the genius of a long-term plan here where, again, it's not a bad thing, as you both said, that this is in the news, because as we often talk about, MAGA, Trump, etc., get to wring all the narrative value out of this decision right now, because a problem has been cited by tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people in the US about censorship. Then it becomes this big deal brought before the Supreme Court, and then the problem still hasn't been solved, right? And we can go through the opinion here and say, okay, well, I understand why actually the problem has not been solved based on this complaint. It reminds me as well of, in the Q drops, lawsuits can be very effective, and some of the statements in the drops, you know, I think they do apply in multiple different ways. There's multiple meanings. Some of them we might just kind of make for ourselves. It's whatever you think about it. When I think about that drop now and that sort of statement, I think it actually can apply to a quote-unquote sloppy lawsuit like this and lawsuits in the future that are much more buttoned up. So the lawsuit right here with Gateway Pundit and Beyond and Missouri and everything, it's a sloppy lawsuit. It's not delivering the end goal. The actual is not being delivered here in terms of dealing with this problem. But we are getting a lot of narrative value out of it. And what is that doing? What we always talk about on this show, it is increasing public mandate for this problem to be fixed right before a presidential debate, as John said, right before the election cycle gets even crazier before November, where censorship is going to become an even bigger deal to Americans. So it seems to me to be running the same kind of template as so many other problems, just like the economy we mentioned in the first segment. These problems get highlighted during Trump 1.0. They get magnified during Trump 2.0, which is Biden 1.0. And now they're getting magnified, they're getting boosted to a 10 out of 10 right before he gets back into office, where he will come in and have the mandate, maybe, Kyle, to say, all right, this isn't just shit we were talking about back in 2020. It came back up during the 2024 election, and don't we all need this now? None of these cases had standing. How can we give these cases standing? Well, there has to be damages alleged, and for damages to be alleged, we can't wait for the perfect case. We have to define the battlefield. And until now, the digital battlefield has not been defined. And we've talked about this a million times in the internet space, and I know I was literally in the publishing industry, the book publishing industry, right? But that's the digital publishing industry. I was also in sports journalism. People have been grappling with these definitions way before the truth community started arguing about people getting banned from Twitter. These companies define themselves as platforms when they want to, and then publishers when they want to. If they want to enforce a contract on a contributor to their platform, they're a publisher all of a sudden. When they have to answer the DOJ, they're a platform. And it's worked perfectly from ESPN to CNN. So we need a line of demarcation here, and a Bill of Rights is probably the only way to do it, because as much as a lot of people say, we need to treat them all as publishers, that's a bad move, because anything you then do, anything you start, is liable to what anybody on your platform does that you don't agree with.
Spot on. All right, let's should we maybe get to the boost quick, and then we can get into Assange?
Sure.
Yeah. All right, Fanny Lady sent $5 over last week. As a resident and native of Kentucky, curious to hear your thoughts about this. Always thought of Bashir as Biden Jr. What is this? It's a search that didn't work. What are the keywords here? A free spoke search, Bashir going to Iowa. Have you guys heard of Bashir? Do you know what that is?
Nope.
Andy Bashir?
I know that name.
Kentucky Governor Andy Bashir. Sorry, this link didn't come through. I don't know what this was, but Joseph Fawcett said, just want to say hi. We'll watch every program John, Just Human, and BB are on, except Story Hour, only because I don't understand what BB and Chris Paul are talking about. Autistic. I can't give much, but you're worth far more than you get from everyone. Thank you very much, Joseph. P. Dwyer sent $117 over and said, how to end the Devo term. SCOTUS overturns 2020 election via fraud. Chaos ensues. Trump pushes a special election by the military. Biden agrees. Exposes fraud. Trump pushes a peaceful compromise. And Biden remains the candidate. Election secured. I mean, it'd be great. We'll see what happens. Lionheart sent 50 over and said, hey guys, my opinion seems to lean in two very distinct directions. Trump wins by largest, most clownish landslide ever, or the Dems cheat to win so big it becomes mathematically impossible to hide the crimes. God bless. Yep, I mean, stuff we've been talking about for a year now. Lisa P, $45. Hi guys, are we watching a shark movie with Trump starring as the shark? Check out my Substack note for a chuckle. I have followed all of you from the beginning. Here is $45 for the 45.
Thank you. Trump is the shark.
45th anniversary of Jaws. Interesting. I see what you're putting down. I get it. Somebody ripped to shreds by a tiger shark over the last few days. A lot of people probably saw that. I do not think the man being ripped to shreds by a tiger shark was a calm. But as horrible as it is, I do roll my eyes when everybody in these articles expresses shock that a man surfing in tiger shark infested waters was torn to shreds by monsters. Just stop doing that, guys. Second one in a month in the same area.
Insane.
I tried to tell him. And Trump's trying to tell him now too.
Still,
and he's got a slightly bigger platform than us.
Your likelihood of getting bit by a shark is very, very low, guys.
I'm sure that people getting ripped to shreds feel that way. They're like, well, the chances were low.
Probably.
Lil Shit, MPLS, Minneapolis, $10, said, wrong show, I know, but on Sunday's Devolution special, you talked about the event at Quinny's Pub in Matamidi, Minnesota on June 30th. And she said, it's pronounced Matomidi. Matomidi?
I don't take constructive criticism well, so I will still pronounce it the way I have been. Thank you, though.
I look forward to meeting you and Patrick at this event.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I saw Secrets in the chat, too. I hope his better twin comes. If you're still watching Secrets, looking forward to seeing you there.
I did spread some anti-twin propaganda that I fully stand by from Sunday night show. Got a little bit of heat for it, but just from twins. So does it matter?
Makes sense. You would. Yeah, just so you are aware of what we're talking about. Let me pull this post up. This Sunday, 12 p.m. in Minnesota, Matamidi, Quinny Sports Pub, going to be a Badlands meetup. I'll be there. Patrick will be there. I think those are probably the only two Badlanders, but got a pretty good crowd coming so far from what I hear. We'll see. But if you do plan on coming, please don't just surprise us. RSVP, just because there will be a free buffet and they want to make sure they have enough food ready. So RSVP to Quinny's Sports Pub at gmail.com. looking forward to seeing you there. But yes, RSVP if you would.
We are caught up on boosts, so thank you guys. You can always go to badlandsmedia.tv, click support if you want to send one of those over.
Awesome. And then I think I got a video here from, was it? I don't know. Dak, you might have to send that link again. Dak sent a link in of the mute thing, but I think they dubbed over the words with something else, and I lost it. So send it back over, man.
Jeez. Way to let everybody down.
Yeah, my bad.
Built
Okay.
everybody up, let them all down.
Let's talk about Assange a little bit. I named the episode tonight the Devolution Assangewich. I thought that was so clever.
Oh my God.
What do you mean? Oh my God, that was a great pun.
It's a condition.
Yeah, but anyway, Assange gets released, and I'm going to be honest, completely honest. You guys know that I woke up pretty late. Like, I didn't start getting into politics until 2018. I never followed the Assange story other than some of the research I did into CrowdStrike and like a little bit Seth Rich, you know, maybe what really happened there. I have my own opinions on that. And I think we got into a minor debate about this one time, Kyle. Yeah. And so I don't know if we agree, but regardless, my knowledge of Assange is not that in depth. However, what I do know, and you guys are probably not going to like me for this, what I do know and what I believe, like I kind of have like the Mike Pompeo take to this, maybe even a little Mike Pence take.
Oh, okay.
A lot of these former Trump admin officials are not big fans of what he did in terms of risking national security. Now, as somebody in the media, I do believe in the full transparency and whatnot. So I understand the other point of view, but again, my naivety is showing. I don't know much about Assange. Surface level, I don't know, but I'm curious what you guys think, because I know a lot of people that follow Q and whatnot, they're saying this is like a big thing, and
it is.
I'm very curious if you guys can enlighten me a little bit.
Do you want to go first, BB, or?
I mean, mine's kind of certain. Kyle can give more details on Julian Assange himself. The reason that, if I want to address the Q point, something that overall I think this is very encouraging, and I don't even mean that just in terms of what you may or may not think of Julian Assange himself, what he was accused of doing.
Can we go into that? Like, what is his background? Sorry to interrupt.
So,
like,
Assange.
Yeah, this is better.
Assange has been a computer hacker for decades, and he's been in trouble for hacking. He ran huge hacking groups. He used to host hacking seminars, and they would hack into government agencies and various businesses, and they would steal information, and they would sell it or publish it online. And then he formed WikiLeaks, supposedly as a news organization, but I very much agree with Pompeo, Pence, Grinnell, Barr, and everybody else in the Trump administration that WikiLeaks is actually a stateless intel agency, and that Assange and WikiLeaks disguised themselves as journalists in order to have that cover and those free speech protections, media protections, that disguise, so that they could get hacked materials and then publish them. Which a normal media outlet can do as long as you're not involved in the actual acquisition of those hacked and stolen materials. And the problem for Assange is that they very much were involved in getting those materials hacked. They were involved in cracking passwords. They were involved in setting out target lists. They put up a target list of what files and what entities and agencies they wanted hacked. And they would assemble groups of hackers. They would contact them and they would encourage them to go and hack those places. And they, Assange specifically, as regards this case, he was charged with 18 counts by the Trump admin, for espionage against the United States, for him and Manning conspiring and him helping Chelsea Manning to crack passwords and to gain access to DOD files. And they stole those files. They also stole State Department cables. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of files. And these files contained all sorts of information that put U.S. troops and U.S. allies at risk. And then they published those things. So that's what the indictment is about. And, he was in the Ecuador embassy hiding out for years. And then Grinnell and the Trump admin made sure to indict him, and Grinnell personally helped arrange him to get out of the embassy by British police to arrest him and put him in prison awaiting extradition. So you have really key people. I mean, we're talking Grinnell, Pompeo, Pence, Barr, Trump, like all these people. They're the ones who got Assange indicted. And it blows my mind that MAGA is such a huge fan of Assange. It really blows my mind. Now, if you go 10 years back, if we went back to 2012, conservatives were not fans of Assange at all. He was hated by the right, and he was loved by the left, and he was loved by the media.
I remember that as a lefty.
And then,
as a former lefty.
Yes. And then it all flipped. And now everything is all screwed up, and everybody throws up that this is a First Amendment thing, and that Assange was in prison for 5 years as a sacrifice for the cause of the First Amendment and freedom of speech and whatnot. And I just really think that's a farce. And I know that's offensive to a lot of people, but he's not a journalist. To me, WikiLeaks is a stateless intel agency that puts stuff up for sale. And I also think they were involved in a plot. I don't think wittingly, though. I kind of think that Assange was involved unwittingly in a plot to frame Trump for the DNC hack. And that Seth Rich fits in there, and that's the connection between Assange. And so I think one of the things that went down with WikiLeaks and the emails for Podesta and DNC and Hillary is that Assange had to make a choice because he realized he got caught holding a bag that he didn't want to be holding, kind of thing. But this has been going on so long, and everybody's really emotional right now, and I can understand it. I do think this is a very good thing. I do think it's a very, very good thing. So I don't want anybody to think I'm not happy about this. I'm very happy that we've had a development in the Assange case.
This is you very happy?
I'm disappointed, though, that it didn't happen at a trial. I wanted a trial so that each side, so that the prosecution could present their evidence against Assange and people could see it and understand why the indictment was brought, and so Assange could defend himself. And I was very much looking forward to being wrong about Assange. I was hoping that at a trial, he could put up a defense and that the prosecution's case would fail. And I'd be like, oh, wow, actually, this guy is way better than I thought and not at all what I thought. And the Trump administration, they indicted him in order to keep him in prison to protect him. Like, that's one of my theories I've kicked around, is that maybe the Trump admin indicted Assange and threw him in Belmarsh in order to protect him. Because the deep state would have taken him out otherwise if he was free from the Ecuadorian embassy, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, maybe this was a way to protect him and keep him in a place where they knew, and then they could monitor him. They could use him as like a honey trap, which, by the way, I think they did when he was in the embassy. Because we know he was spied on by multiple agencies while he was in the embassy. So I think that was part of the play. But anyway, I am really happy about this because the drops, this nails the drop for Julian Assange news in June. And what the drops say is that Julian Assange unlocks Seth Rich, the server unlocks Seth Rich connects to DNC, and once we get there, we get to Awan, we get to Imran Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, we get to all sorts of things, the hack, the murder, there's so much stuff that the drops say happen once either Assange or the server are stateside, or like there's some key event, right?
Yeah.
And so this is that key event, and so that's what has me really excited. And there's also some really interesting clues with the plea agreement. I mean, one, Assange they dropped 17 charges, so that's pretty crazy. I mean, we just got a 17 comp. Another thing is that the original docket for Assange's case, for the indictment with the 18 counts, that docket on the day that the plea agreement was announced put out 2 alerts that were in error. And those alerts were for April 17th and for June 20th, I think, of 2020. But like they hit back on dates that were relevant to the drops and were relevant to things that happened in the storyline. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I'm sorry. But I got this error off the docket that was relevant. They created this new case in order to do this deal over in Guam. Now check this out, guys. They took Julian Assange to Guam to do a plea agreement.
Yep.
They took Julian Assange to one of the most secure jurisdictions on the planet in order to do a plea agreement.
Something he could have done.
Did you just convince
Zoom.
yourself of the other scenario? Because
they took Julian Assange to one of the most secure jurisdictions on the planet so that there could be a transfer of information, which is what the plea agreement indicates in the line where it says the defendant agrees to turn over all the information he has and or provide an affidavit that it has been destroyed. Now, everybody's keying in on the destroyed thing and thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. The DOJ had Assange destroy all the dirt on Hillary. They had Assange destroy all the dirt he had on the deep state. Oh my God, this is terrible. Well, it also says before that, he had to turn the information over. If he wasn't going to be turning anything over, he was just going to have it destroyed. Then why did they need this super secure jurisdiction in Guam?
Definitely true. One more thing I want to point out really quick before I pass it back to you, Burning Bright, is also this ties Assange stuff, I think ties to Ukraine too, because in that phone call, the CrowdStrike with the servers, they say it all started in Ukraine.
Yes.
So that's another connection too to keep your eye on.
Yeah, it's
Don,
funny.
Sorry, BB. It's not just it's not just a connection. The two hacking groups that hacked the DNC. Yeah. Don't start arguing with me about it. But the two hacking groups that did hack the DNC, because the DNC left the door open because it was supposed to be hacked, because it was a trick, it was a job. They were going to frame Trump for the hacking, but you can't frame Trump for having the DNC hacked if there is no hack. So Hillary Clinton, the DNC, they hired these two hacking groups that are made up of what? Russians and Ukrainians, and located where? Ukraine and Cyprus. Who else is located in Ukraine and Cyprus? Oh, servers.com, Alperovich, Galena, all of these people that were involved in Spygate, Danchenko, Chuck Dolan, all of that. Yeah. Kind of funny how the Spygate thing crosses into the DNC hack with the same people, the same locations. They were trying to create a Watergate. They were trying to create a Watergate in 2016 and blame Trump for hacking the DNC by asking that he asked the Russians to do it.
Just to give the alternative viewpoint here, it is much easier and probably less risky than having to hire foreign hackers to hack something, to just like hire an IT group to come in and say that foreign groups hacked something, like, CrowdStrike. Like they hired CrowdStrike to come in and do all the IT work and check all that stuff. So
the drops say crowds. I'm helping you. Why are you telling me to shut? I'm about to.
I thought you were gonna.
Never mind.
Counter me.
No, I'm not going to give you that. I was going to give you a hand up. I was going to put a cherry on top of what you said.
I just didn't know, because at the beginning you prefaced your whole thing with like, don't even do it, bro.
Don't even do it. I'm not going to.
Okay, but for the audience,
but you did
not
it.
for me.
You did
I'll plug my ears. I'll plug my ears. You go ahead and tell the audience the Q thing.
The drops say CrowdStrike code insert, and they say it in a drop that concerns both Julian Assange and Seth Rich.
I didn't actually plug my ears, so I heard all that. Thank you.
Pretty neat, huh? Pretty neat. The drops say that.
Pretty neat.
I mean, all of this, it's funny because Kyle laid out like the facts of the case with Julian Assange. If I'm just leaning, I mean, obviously, Kyle, you lean a certain direction with him. My gut instinct is actually your devil's advocate scenario is where I lean. And then your primary scenario is my devil's advocate scenario, but I can equally hold both of those. I do believe, to me, it makes more sense to me that they were moving him around to protect him. Either way, though, the thing I like about the protection angle, I actually think this is a bicameral situation where you can say Assange, not necessarily bad actor, but let's just say selfish actor, independent actor out for Julian Assange. Even if you want that scenario versus Assange was working for white hats the whole time, that kind of thing. Both scenarios, both bicamerals, work with patriots moving him around to protect him, and that goes back to how he is framed or referenced in the drops. The idea of we have the source, and people talked about Seth Rich, they talk about Julian Assange, but this, it's the truth, man.
It's the perfect Switzerland moment. Keep going, bro.
Yeah. See, the chat understands. But I absolutely think that, well, it's funny that you play this because I literally said which one I believe to start this, but I'm grown up, so I can also look at the other side.
I waited till you said, but both sides are like.
Yeah. So what I do with a bicameral scenario is I find the argument that works in both because that's the argument that is the most likely to be true. So the idea of Julian Assange being bad or good, the thing that unifies both of those is that patriots were the ones protecting him. Because even if Julian Assange was not a patriot guy, the deep state wanted him dead. We can all agree the deep state wanted him dead, right? Because he's a source of information. The same way the mob wants to kill their own bagmen to get them to not turn state's evidence against them, even if the bagman is also a mobster. So that's kind of how I see him. And as Kyle said with the drops, the biggest thing here to me is just the timing of it, Julian Assange, that name, the power of that name. And you know, one more point I would make of why I actually lean in the direction of this has been much more of a patriot op involving Julian Assange, or using Julian Assange might be a better way to classify this from the start, is sometimes it's these weird negative indicators I use where I was on my normie Twitter feed today and it's all a bunch of blue checkmark journalists. You know, a lot of them like Julian Assange because of exactly what Kyle pointed out, that the Trump administration was seen as going after Julian Assange, right? So you can play the kayfabe game with this and say, what would look really good for the Trump administration is if Julian Assange does present information to the DOJ that results in charges, some of the original charges that we've talked about in our QAnon fever dreams with the DNC, the Clinton campaign, Seth Rich. If Julian Assange is a source for that stuff and the Trump administration was going after him, it's perfect narrative shielding walls between the Trump administration and Julian Assange. There is no narrative out there in Normieville that suggests that the Trump administration is friendly to Julian Assange. A lot of Bitcoin maximalists actually don't like Trump because he went after Assange. So, you know, again, it could be because of all these things. And I guess for me, I'm a little biased. I saw Ghost saying something along these lines in the chat, and I think that leaving aside what the specifics of the information that Julian Assange published, that claims are made by the DOJ that put U.S. operators in danger. Let's say that's true. For the sake of argument, say that that's true and that's what you believe. The problem I have...
Assange admitted that it was true at the...
Okay, the problem I have, even if that's true, is that the lionization, the legal lionization of journalists as a protected class of person, I think is a problem. So this unearths, besides the specific information and trying to leave aside Julian Assange as an individual and his intentions, I would rather the argument be about criminal acts, the net effects of those criminal acts, rather than it be about classified information. Because to me, this is one of the major problems that we are running into, that people like Ezra Cohen Watnick talk about constantly, and Kash Patel, is that the government gets to decide, whoever is leading the government at any given time gets to decide what information we, the American public, have access to. So one framing of it is saying, oh, these hackers were hacking government information for their own gains. That's possibly true. But it's also true that if you don't take government information and blow the whistle on that government information, we've seen that the government is damn well not going to give that information to you, right? So journalism has taken on this kind of thing these days where it's like journalists get to ask permission from a friendly regime, and then the regime gets to decide whether or not they give that journalist said information, where that's not really what the spirit of journalism is supposed to be. The original spirit of journalism is find some shit out, and if you think it's in the public interest to publish that shit, you publish that shit. And the WikiLeaks emails were absolutely 100% in the public interest to publish. So that's it's a different argument. But if you go against the original stuff with Julian Assange, they can use the same argument against all of the emails that exposed Podesta, that exposed everything around Seth Rich, etc.
But wait a minute, okay. I think you're kind of conflating some things there, though. Assange wasn't indicted for anything having to do with 2016.
I know. I'm saying that if he's in, I'm saying that the charges against Assange, I think the same sort of arguments can be made against leaks like the 2016 leaks. I fear
don't think
those.
So.
You don't think so?
No, because what Assange is charged for, what him and Manning did, was they hacked into DOD files and then they entered the State Department, and then they downloaded State Department cables, which they're not just classified cables. They're communications between ambassadors and human sources and all sorts of things like that. They're internal comms of the government. And then they downloaded rules of engagement from DOD, and just that's huge right there. That's huge. If an enemy knows our soldiers' rules of engagement, they know when our soldiers can and cannot fight back, which means they know how to exploit our soldiers at their most vulnerable points.
Yeah, let me make a devil's advocate argument.
It's extremely dangerous, though. So
I agree. I understand that.
The classified stuff they stole, it's not whistleblowing. It's not the same thing as whistleblowing. It's not the same thing as exposing government crime.
This case. That's why I'm saying that this is why this is a nuanced debate, because the scenario you lay out there makes total sense. Classified DOD material, movement of troops, battle plans, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. Fever dream, conspiracy theorist, hypothetical scenario. I'm a hacker. I hack into the Pentagon, and I find smoking gun evidence that the Bush administration was directly involved in the 9/11 attacks.
Okay.
Exact same laws would be used to go after me for publishing that information. So what I'm saying is
Hold on. If you published it, or if a media outlet or journalist helped you hack it and acquire it, you and that outlet would be charged. But if you hacked it on your own, found this material, took it, went to a media outlet and said, I found this on my own, I believe it's important and in the public interest for you to publish it, they would be protected. If they're an American journalist and they didn't have anything to do with acquiring that hacked material, they would be protected in publishing it. That's the rub with Assange and WikiLeaks.
Now, what happens if the media is a
acquiring
defender of the establishment that you are trying to expose, which is exactly what the case was with WikiLeaks. Literally exactly what the case was. People didn't want to publish most of the information, so WikiLeaks put the information out directly themselves. You had, what's his name, at The Guardian, Greenwald originally, but not everything was published by them. So
let me make a counterpoint here, because I see what you're saying. A majority of the media is that way, but there are still some good, honest journalists out there that he could approach. But and your hypothetical situation, what was that?
He did. I mean,
he did.
He went to Greenwald. He went to several journalists.
But again, the problem is he was involved in acquiring it.
I just don't. I don't care.
I know, but
that's what makes it not protected.
I know why it's not protected. I'm saying I disagree that it shouldn't be. I disagree with the law.
Okay. Well, then the law needs to be changed, because the hypothetical stuff, like especially when it comes to the law, like even if you find the stuff that like evidence of our government doing 9/11, that's still a crime based on the current law we have.
Yeah.
Like which sucks. But if you do it the right way, like Justine is saying, I totally understand your point.
That's why I'm making that's why I make an extreme argument of saying, obviously I'm not saying that's a realistic scenario. I'm just saying
that's not
it's
what
an absurd. I know. And that's why I tried to draw a line between Julian Assange's situation. It's the same thing, actually, going back to the Amy Coney Barrett case. And I agree with, I think that her reading there was reasonable. But Alito's response to that was basically making the argument I'm making with Assange, where he's saying, if we don't ever define this in the future, which we think they will define, then it could have far-reaching consequences. So I'm saying to separate the Julian Assange specific situation and to use the most cartoonish example you could. 2020 election fraud. I'm an independent journalist. I mean, there's no such thing as a journalist, first of all. There's no such thing, and this is the problem. Like, in the modern world, speaking as somebody who has a journalism degree, what makes me a journalist? Working for an outlet that the government approves? That sounds like a Canadian law where they literally have approved outlets that they have given literal journalist licenses to. That is communism. So that is not what the press, the free press, is supposed to be.
Well, I don't think that's what Justin was saying either, though. Like
no, I'm saying the way the law is written is that he would be protected if he didn't put the information out himself, if he gives it to a journalist, right? I'm saying I don't understand how that makes sense. If you find information that is in the public interest, if your argument is that you find information that is in the public interest, and it is deemed that that information is in the public interest, then you shouldn't have to pass that information to somebody else to put that information out there.
You don't have to. You can put it out there yourself. It's just
and
if
be
you
charged
choose to,
by the
if you
DOJ.
choose, well, right, but you're going to be charged anyway, unless you take the correct path unless you take a whistleblower path.
Yeah.
So,
well, and again, look at when. I don't think you'd disagree with this. When Julian Assange was first coming up, it was in the Obama era, who prosecuted the most whistleblowers of any administration in U.S. history, right? So we can see, again, I'm not arguing that Julian Assange is a good guy. I'm just saying that these arguments...
And during that administration, during that Obama administration, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, Julian Assange had her lawyer on speed dial and would call and talk to her lawyer because he was in constant communication with the Clinton State Department.
I remember the audio. Is the audio of that out?
That should be a bit of a red flag. That should be a bit
the
of a
audio
red flag.
That's out, right? Isn't there an audio call between him and her lawyer?
Yep.
I mean, again, you can play devil's advocate with that and say that was a threat as well.
Yeah, I really wanted that to come up. That would have come up in trial. That call, and I really wanted to know if the guy who left WikiLeaks was the guy who was actually responsible for all that, because that would have absolved. Yeah. That's one thing that could have actually absolved Julian Assange of those crimes that he was charged with, is if he would have been able to prove his defense that it was this other guy that he was calling the Clinton State Department about in regards to those cables.
Yeah. But, do you think, though, one question on the Assange with a trial, because I agree with you. When I think of the drops of we have the source and everything, and many Anons have thought there will be a day where we see either Julian Assange himself or information from Julian Assange used. So when you're talking about this transfer of information, I mean, you still might get that scenario, right? We can look at this and say the story here isn't quite done. So we might get a lot of this. We might figure out what's going on here. If Assange doesn't have to be put on trial, he can be called as a state's witness in future cases. So that's what I personally think is going to play out, and we might get some of this information. You know, we might see which way it leans in terms of why he was doing these things. I think it's a big open book of why he was doing these things, but I just think that I don't find government and DOJ and DOD complaints about the process all that compelling, because it totally depends on what is discovered that the DOD and DOJ are involved in. It depends which regime is in control at any given time. And that's why you have to think about completely different scenarios and hypotheticals rather than somebody, grabbing and publishing troop movements or something like that.
Well, and this is what the pardon was invented for like somebody like Assange who finds illegal government activity going on. And guys, a whistleblower is somebody within the organization. Somebody, like, you can't blow the whistle. I mean, you can, but for the definition of the law, you have to be within the organization. That's not what Assange was doing. But that's why there is a presidential pardon. If somebody is harshly being charged or whatever, you can pardon them, which Trump never did or never said he would do with Assange until about a month ago when he was on Tim Pool and asked about it. And so that was probably most interesting to me, is Trump never said a word about being willing to pardon Assange until a month ago. And so did he either know this was coming or have some role in it in some way to get him pardoned? Because that was a distinct change of tune from previously.
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Grinnell or Pompeo or somebody was part of this, because the Australian government is saying that this was I don't remember if it was the ambassador or who it was, said that this was a months-long process that happened in secret with tons of people visiting the United States to meet with DOJ and the Biden White House to try and get I don't remember if they said the Biden White House. I take that back. To get this done. The Biden White House says they had nothing to do with this. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm willing to believe they had nothing to do with it and didn't even know it was happening until they saw it in the news, because they're disconnected from so much of what is important that happens day to day. But I wouldn't be surprised if people from Trump were involved in this. And I wouldn't be surprised if the reason Trump floated that on Tim Pool was because it had been 5 years, which meant Assange could get time served for the, basically the plea agreement spells out what on the information he's now charged with. He gets time served because it actually does add up to 62 months.
Where was he being held at again?
Belmarsh. It's the most secure prison in the UK, is my understanding anyway.
And this is why we even see, going back to the way the information was originally sourced, some of Assange's first comments post-release, he's been commenting on the precedents, right? Because people are like, oh, this is great, this is a joyous day. He's not celebrating it. He's saying that this sets precedent where they are saying, I've served time, thereby codifying these crimes. So obviously, a pardon, like John said, would be interesting if Trump goes in that direction. And then if Trump gets in there, I expect him to address this in some way. And usually he ends up addressing it in a way that kind of finds a middle ground. I mean, I think we saw this in Roe v. Wade, where most people in this community would say, on the issue itself, there's no middle ground, right? On the issue of abortion, you are either for abortion being allowed or you are against it. There's very little in between there. And yet, most of us acknowledge that Trump managed to kind of thread the needle there and say, hey, I strongly disagree with this, but I'm going to adhere to the founding sort of tenets of our nation and put it back to the states, even if that eats him alive of what certain states are going to do there. And most of us can get on board with that kind of thing. So I would expect him, especially given the reputational hit journalists have taken, for sure, quote unquote, real professional journalists and outlets have taken in the intervening decade, and also that the administration has taken, the Obama administration, obviously, again, prosecuting journalists the most ever. Obviously, this process doesn't work. So if you take Julian Assange out of it, you can't really come up with a hypothetical scenario in our current media environment in which, I guess to put it as bluntly as I could put it, it would be, if you did uncover government wrongdoing and you uncovered that through what the government deems are illegal means, you have no confidence that you are going to be able to get that information out without being prosecuted by that government. And if the information that you uncover is true, factual, and in the public interest to know, I personally think you should have full immunity for that information coming out. And we can't have this weird thing where all of a sudden it's okay that the information comes out because you handed it off to somebody. I just disagree with that. And we'll see if Trump, and again, you can disagree with that and think that Julian Assange was a bad dude operating, for his own best interests. I just think it's about the precedent that it could set for future.
I don't understand the precedent. What Assange is saying, that it set a precedent?
He's saying that the fact that the way that I understand this decision here is that they're not saying that Julian Assange is innocent. They're saying he served his time for the crimes.
He stipulated to the crimes in the plea agreement. He stipulated that he did engage in those activities.
I know he stipulated he engaged in the activities. He admits to the crimes. The premise here, the argument from me, from Julian Assange, from everybody who defends Julian Assange, is that those should not be crimes. That's what he's saying, is that...
What's the precedent, though?
There isn't one. You mean... The precedent is that this codifies that these are crimes. He has served time for these crimes retroactively.
We got more to discuss, and I don't think
I just don't understand what the precedent is.
You guys should defect on this.
I don't understand how I could possibly word this differently. Something occurred that I don't think should be allowed to occur, and he's saying that this plea agreement that I know he... All right, move on then. It's like, people like these kinds of conversations. These are not bad conversations to have. I don't know why, like...
I'm not trying to be difficult. I've seen the precedent thing going around. I didn't catch... I haven't caught that. I didn't know it had a source. I thought people were just throwing the precedent thing around. So I was interested what the precedent everybody thought was being set here, because I haven't picked up on one.
I think he is saying, what I'm interpreting of what Julian Assange is saying is that he is saying somebody in the future should not be able to be treated this way. This whole saga of being held in prisons for gathering information, for hacking into government information.
Okay. So he's feeding the I'm a martyr narrative.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think my point is, like, I don't know how this relates to devolution, like, you know, at this point.
What?
I don't have an answer for that.
The last 20 minutes.
I mean, you brought the Julian Assange topic up and named the show after it, so...
I know, but the last 20 minutes, I just don't understand.
All right.
I will say, didn't David Cameron from the UK visit Trump in April?
Yeah.
And so
that sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. I do want we still got to get to the Biden laptop thing. And what time is it? Yeah. So we could probably close out on this topic, because this is just so interesting to me that this is being rerun now. And same with the Assange thing. Lots of things like this last couple weeks have been almost, I think, helpful to Trump for the debate. We had Snopes correct a story from 2017. They just corrected it on June 21st, 5 days ago, that no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis white supremacists. They just took away a weapon that Biden could use in the debate. Okay. The Assange thing being part, I don't know, maybe that'll get brought up. But then with the Hunter Biden laptop story, okay, we have this breaking news that is like 6 months old that, yeah, there was a little bit of bias with these 51 intelligence agents, and there was no evidence that it was a Russian disinformation thing, but they published this whole report on it again. And if you guys remember from the original debate, I wonder if I can find that clip quick. Because this was something that actually came up. Trump Biden debate. Let me play this. But the timing of it is just so damn interesting to me, because it's right before this current debate. Here we go.
You know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up. Please respond, and then we're going to have follow-up.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
Right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
From hell.
President Trump, we're talking about race right now, and I do want to stay.
We're talking about race right now.
And I have to respond to that.
Please.
Because look, there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the character. 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani. You mean
Rudy Giuliani? So yeah, we have this. This was put out.
I think that was coordinated, by the way. That's our boy Joe. I'm making a half joke, but you could convince me that Joe Biden was the one who went off script there, because she's staring at him with those handler's eyes of being like, Joe, pivot. And he's like, no, I got to get to the Russia thing. which perfectly sets Trump up for the Russia clip.
I see where you're going with that, even though I disagree. But
Or
okay,
Joe is just that easy to manipulate. It works either way.
he definitely is. But okay, now imagine that scenario there with the current debate and the muted mics, and like it's just gonna be so interesting tomorrow to see how that plays out, because Biden is going to be baited into responding to stuff that nobody can hear Trump saying, and it's just going to sound like he's a total whack job for doing it. But okay, this came out on June 25th, yesterday. The Intelligence Community 51, how CIA contractors colluded with the Biden campaign to mislead American voters. And I actually wrote an article somewhat about this. The whole laptop saga is interesting. We don't have to have the debate of whether or not Hunter is an asset, but it's been building.
We need to team up. We need a defected team up. It's a comic book heel turn, face turn against you, John.
Let's have it,
because Kyle was on my bad side, and then you got on my bad side at the end of that argument. You stepped in the crossfire.
Well, I didn't mean to get in your bad side. I just wanted to like move the show forward because I felt like we were stuck in one of those like loops of nothing.
An Irish argument.
Yeah. Pretty much every argument with you. But yeah, if you guys want to gang up on me here, you can. I still do not believe that Hunter Biden is an informant. He legitimately.
Say it's okay to be wrong, John.
I wasn't planning on launching into that debate based off of that report.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what Bernie Brad was just going there. But okay, this report is.
If you want.
No, we don't need to. We do not need to do that. So building up to this, like in the summer of, this is something I wanted to point out. Do you guys remember this article? This came out October 7th. So this would have been like what, 7 days before the laptop story was published by the Post. I think that was October 14th. There's this story from Wired Magazine, the right way to cover hacks and leaks before the election. They did this whole exercise where they like
to Julian Assange.
Yeah, no shit. But the author here, this is one I didn't catch before. Garrett Graff, he wrote Raven Rock. Like,
I'm not familiar with Raven Rock.
It's all about the government's contingency plans and all their like top secret stuff.
Oh,
like counter government stuff.
Interesting.
The story of the U.S. government's secret plan to save itself while the rest of us die. Raven Rock, Garrett Graff.
Interesting.
And I thought it was interesting that he's the one who wrote this article. But they teamed up with the Aspen Institute. They did this summer tabletop exercise where they cover how the media is supposed to appropriately cover stories about potential information, such as a laptop gets published or whatever, and it has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. 7 days before before the laptop actually gets published in the Post. So it's like they knew this was coming. Everybody knew this was coming. Right. Then you have this report. I'm going to actually pull up the report in my Adobe quick because I have some stuff highlighted. Because there are a few nuggets I actually want to touch on. And Kyle or Bernie, if you guys want to interrupt at any point, feel free to do so. I'm going to find the right window here. Okay, so a lot of the story is the same. A couple new things is, and Kyle, you made a point before the show about how you think this kind of Gina Haspel may have written off on this, and that's essentially what is said here. They don't explicitly say it. It was either her or her deputy director, I believe. Yeah. The guy, if you read the testimony, he didn't specify which. But the interesting one is that DNI Ratcliffe actually saw this, and I think he gave them the rope to like hang themselves with.
Exactly.
So the CIA alerted the Office of the Director of National Intelligence about the draft of the Hunter Biden statement, which is unusual. It's unusual for the PCRB board to like send this over to the ODNI. But anyway, as CIA officials circulated the Hunter Biden statement to the highest levels of the agency, the PCRB also felt compelled to share the statement with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, requesting a quick turn on the ODNI's assessment. After exchanging emails, ODNI deferred to the CIA's judgment regarding the approval of the statement and stated it had no objections. So the ODNI is like, we're going to defer to the CIA and let them decide what to do with this as they wish. Then like a couple hours later, this thing was published. And then the same day it was published, DNI Ratcliffe comes out and says, no, that's a bunch of bullshit. So that is fascinating. But Kyle, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, except for just that they said that this was, I think the guy that reported on them stinging over the ODNI said that he couldn't recall ever having done that before. I think that's what he said. Not just that it was rare, that he couldn't recall ever having done that before. And then I think it was also him who said he didn't recall ever having a submission that had this many signatories to it of former CIA directors, deputy directors, etc. So
another quote I want to read here from the committee is the infamous Hunter Biden statement had all the hallmarks of an intelligence community influence operation, but rather than carrying it out against our adversaries on foreign soil, its operation was directed at the American people and our democratic processes. That is like spot on with what Trump said about the last 7 years. The three-letter agencies have been conducting illegal psychological warfare operations against the American people. Okay, I want to get down to Brennan's statement, because Brennan's statement is one of the more hilarious things I think I've seen, because he basically admits that he didn't want to preview any intelligence because he didn't want to taint his, okay, it's right here, this whole thing. The other primary drafter of the public statement, Mark, how do you say it? Mark Polymeropoulos?
Polymeropoulos.
Okay. Similarly testified that he had no access to classified information regarding the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop. Former CIA Director John Brennan likewise asserted that he did not have access to classified information. In his transcribed interview with the committee, former DNI James Clapper stated that he did not seek to access any classified information when he signed the public statement. He said, and this is a question from the committee, well, you're the former DNI who's about to make a very public statement about a very specific thing that you are claiming is likely Russian disinformation. You had the clearance. You could have requested a briefing on it. Why did you not even consider doing that? Brennan says, or Clapper says, I didn't do it because I didn't think it was appropriate. Question, why? Answer, because I didn't want to be tainted by ... access to classified information. Can't believe he said this. But why would it be tainted to try to find the truth before you signed? And then he says, bad choice of words. I wanted only to go on what I had seen publicly. That's all. I didn't want any connection with classified information in any way. He's basically admitting that he didn't want to see the truth about the laptop because he wanted to be able to just, like, he wanted the plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Question. What was classified? What's the classified thing that he would have looked at that would have revealed?
I don't know. I think back to the IRS whistleblower testimony and David Weiss and his investigation. They've known for a long time that this laptop was legitimate.
Oh, for sure.
Back through the testimony, and I should find that timeline.
I'm just, I really wish there was more of the testimony here and there weren't these ellipses, because I'd really like to understand the context of what it is he's talking about that's classified that would have helped him determine whether the laptop was legitimate or not. Because I just don't, I honestly don't know what is it that they would have looked at that would have swayed them one way or another that's classified. And is it because there was already an investigation going on related to the laptop and there was classified information on the laptop? I don't know.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I mean, that's possible, but I was actually wondering if this was just his way of saying, I don't know what's in there, and it could be classified.
Mm-hmm.
Just as, like John said, the plausible deniability angle, the idea that the reason I kind of lean toward that of there being less thought in it than you might think, is him saying poor choice of words and then going into that direction, right? Because he kind of wanted that to be the end there. I didn't want access to this information. And then he goes, oh, classified information. I didn't want to look at classified information.
It's so weird that he said, I didn't want any connection with classified information ... in any way.
Yeah.
Well, there is this one. So at one point after it was published, after the letter saying it has all the earmarks, and let me share this screen. I hate how you have to like switch back to browser.
I know.
From Adobe, anyway, whatever. So what the Polymeropoulos guy, whatever, he was requesting approval of talking points to go on like the media rounds, and then this is an email from somebody. Good morning, blank and blank. It appears somebody is actively involved in a pro-Biden campaign and may be disclosing classified information in his efforts. It's difficult to believe that the timing of the attached, whatever. but this one got denied. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, his talking points sought to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop. He had decades of experience in the CIA and should have known that the proper protocols surrounding the use of classified information. So he was trying to use classified information.
Yeah. Okay.
In talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now somebody's trying to assist a presidential campaign using classified information, potentially using classified information from the CIA. Fair to say, an even bigger no-no, if I may. And the answer from Marcatus or whatever, Marcritus. The use of classified info, regardless of the purpose, is a no-no.
Well, holy shit.
It says
John.
possibly.
John.
They give themselves caveats there.
Holy shit.
Just Human's got a just boner. What's going on?
I know exactly what might be the answer to what was classified that Polymeropoulos was requesting permission.
You know exactly what
to
might
spread.
be?
Yep. I know exactly what it might be. Yep.
Let's hear it.
Yep. Hunter Biden's a CIA asset.
Why would that be?
He wanted to disclose that Hunter Biden was a CIA asset. So you can't, this Biden right here, this laptop right here, you can't use it against him. He's just gathering evidence on his targets.
I don't know, man.
That's
Except
the
if he was
talking
one of
point
those
he wanted.
targets, if he was one of those targets,
yeah, he was one of those targets.
He could be saying both. Yeah, he's like, no. This is going to be used against me.
Yeah,
that's funny.
John, I'm just telling. I didn't mean to go to that.
That's if you give Clapper. That's if you give him a lot of credit. But if you don't give him a lot of credit, then he was just saying, "I don't want the truth." And
I do not want to be the guy to reveal that Hunter Biden is a CIA asset.
Hold on. I'm trying to read a little more context on this.
There's a lot of wording though where it keeps saying potentially classified information. So there's nobody that actually is directly alleging that it is classified.
Seems that way, yeah.
They're saying, like in both of his statements there, he's saying
there
could
approved.
be classified material on there.
They were approved.
The talking points, right?
Yeah. So the talking points, they were eventually approved.
Dang it.
Can you go back to the wording up there?
What were they then? Do we know what they...
Let me read the footnote. CIA produced versions of the relevant documents with differing redactions. Committees were able to confirm the documents concerned the same matter based on comparison of the documents. Below, the bodies of these initial 3 emails in each chain appear identical, but the unredacted versions references a manuscript submitted by whatever, pap smear guy, regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story. The highlighted and connected portions of the graphic demonstrate that these 2 email chains are identical until they verge into separate conversations. They're both referencing the talking points. They don't say what they were. It's just that they're approved.
I thought that was the talking points that the quotes, the potentially classified information, I thought was not there.
Yeah, but it does say they were approved, but we don't see what they were specifically.
Can you go back to the statement originally when you brought up the talking points section?
This one?
Right there. Okay, so we have here in his testimony.
Well, see,
broad mandate every CIA staff member operates under. I was keying in.
They contradict themselves.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. They're giving themselves no plausible deniability here, where they're saying right at the start, trying to assist presidential campaign using classified information, potentially using classified information. They give themselves an immediate inverse.
No, I'm saying like ultimately the PCRB prevented him from disseminating classified information as talking points, but they approved the talking points overall.
Okay.
Just without the classified info.
That makes sense.
Use of classified info regardless of purpose. No.
It seems like this report, which is interesting, I read the whole thing, and I thought it interesting, even though there's not really any new things in there, the fact that some of the signatories were actively on contract with the CIA seems to be the new thing that they're really pushing.
Yep.
And also all this mentions of classified stuff, it's like they're pushing that the CIA, these people, they had the ability to reach out and confirm whether or not it actually was a Russian hack and dump operation. They chose not to because it was politically advantageous and preferable to them. Even though they had the means to verify whether it was or not, They said, nah, let's just run with what is most advantageous for for President Biden, candidate Biden at the time, right? So that seems to be their main point. But what I'm really interested in is what we started this topic out with, was talking about how it seems that Haspel and Ratcliffe both gave these 51 people the rope to hang themselves with. And earlier today in a message to you guys, I'd said, I think it's kind of like Haspel trapped them in a take bunker.
Right.
Like it just, to steal BB's verbiage there, that's effectively what has happened, is those people that signed the letter, they put their name and their credibility, such that it is,
right,
or was, to this take on the Hunter Biden laptop, which is completely wrong and is now contradicted by the same federal agencies that they claimed were supporting them in their declaration that this had all the hallmarks of a Russian hack and dump operation. So,
and that ties in, that reading of it ties into the oft repeated, I caught them all, right? And I know that we apply that to the entirety of the deep state and the plan, but we constantly are looking for mechanisms through which Trump caught them. And this would be one of them. I had written an article a couple of years ago called Hot Potato, and that was basically talking about the laptop and talking about these kinds of things, of saying, when you've got this kind of information, let's say it's classified information or potentially classified information, either way, it's compromising information. The way that we think that sort of a laptop would compromise people is what's on it. But the way you just laid it out, Kyle, shows you that you could be compromised by this laptop without engaging with anything in the laptop or without being implicated in anything with the laptop, right? Because what this operation was, the 50 intelligence officials signing onto a document, it was very literally a narrative deployment. They weren't really alleging anything about the laptop specifically. They were putting forward a narrative about the laptop, and it does show that the traps come in so many different forms. If they, meaning Patriots, don't have you implicated in something on that laptop and in this information connected to these criminal enterprises, if you sign on to something discrediting the information, the keyword going from the drops and in our legal system would be knowingly. And I think we can guess that most of these officials knowingly lied about the origins of the laptop because they knew it was real. That's how they catch them. So they don't even have to know what's on there. And I think that when we're seeing these Clapper statements of, well, I didn't want to touch it because it's classified, I think they've got him caught. I think you're seeing somebody who knows he's kind of trapped, because if he doesn't put forward this narrative or sign on, then he's basically tacitly endorsing the reality of the laptop. But if he does sign on, then he's claiming it's fake, but he knows it's not.
The last thing about Clapper, the fact that he said the word tainted, that's another reason I want to see his entire statement there, is because tainted is a legal term. Mm-hmm. And I would expect he means it in a legal way, which I think he means that if he saw it later on, he might be called in a case and he might be asked to give a deposition as to what he saw. So if he can just go ahead and not be tainted by that and say, I didn't see anything about what Politico and the New York Times and WAPO put to print. That's all I saw. That's where he wants to be, right? So I feel like it's also what he's getting at, but I really want to see the full extent of his comments there. But I think that's why I used that word.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm sure we'll get the release of those transcripts at some point. Maybe. I guess I don't know. But the point here, we think Trump, this is why they did it. Blinken is the one who started it off. He reached out to Morell from the CIA. They're the ones who kind of organized this whole thing. But they thought that Trump was going to use it to attack Biden on the issue at this week's debate, and they wanted to give him a talking point in response. That almost feels like what this thing is from the Weaponization of Government Committee, or one of the subcommittees. They're like basically giving Trump a talking point by putting this out right before the debate. Another interesting thing, Kyle, I'm sure you've seen this already, but so the Apple store, the computer repair guy, John Paul Isaac, whatever.
Yeah.
He gave this to the FBI in like December of 2019. He saw them not doing anything with it. And so he eventually reached out to Rudy Giuliani, and he ended up giving an external hard drive copy to his attorney, Robert Costello. And that's where it originally got to the Post, allegedly. That's the story we're told. Hunter Biden had sued Costello and Giuliani over the computer stuff, like trying to hack his stuff and share his stuff. He dropped that lawsuit just like a week or so ago, which I thought was interesting.
Also, that's also right after it was the FBI agent testified about the laptop in his Delaware case.
Yep, we have that as well.
Yep.
So notable there for sure. I don't know. We could debate back and forth about the informant thing.
I don't think that actually indicates one way or the other. I mean, I would expect him to bring a lawsuit like that, whether he was an asset or not. Honestly, so
I think the key there too that doesn't have anything to do with Hunter being an asset is again zeroing in on Clapper there, and not just him, but you imagine this song and dance was probably playing out with a lot of these other officials too, especially ones who are more deeper into the swamp. I bet it's really easy to get Ensign Joe and the swamp adjacent type of officials and ones who are trying to grovel, like, hey, we need you to sign on to this, be part of the team. There's probably a lot of kind of nobodies, quote unquote, in the context of what we think of as the deep state and corrupt cops that are just easily compromised. Clapper told me to do something, or Blinken told me to do something. I'm a team player. I'm going to sign on here. But there's some of these old school players who know exactly how this stuff works. And right there, the exchanges there with him are perfect because the very narrative they're putting out is that this has all the classic hallmarks of Russian disinformation. And the response back then to, well, why wouldn't you want to handle it then, is discrediting the very narrative they're putting out. Like, it sounds so obvious, but the fact that they've got them in writing saying, it's like, if it's Russian disinformation, then you can analyze it and tell us exactly how it's Russian disinformation. What are the hallmarks of Russian disinformation? You experts, you longtime spooks, can't you tell us? You were around during the Soviet days. Like, you probably got all kinds of ways you can figure out the dastardly Russians and what they did. But they're saying, the smarter ones here are saying, well, we think it is, but just in case it's totally 100% legit and everything that Trump and team are saying it is, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah. Well, this is why they let him do it. I mean, Trump, if what we think is going on is really going on, and like Trump allowed it to play out this way on purpose, because you could look at this 100% as election interference. D&I Ratcliffe let them do this anyway, even though he put out the statement afterwards. It's very similar to the statement he put out after on January 7th, it was, when Executive Order 13848 calls for those reports, and they came out and said there wasn't really interference, and he came out contradicting that as well. He's the one who oversees all the intelligence. He has the access to the most intelligence, maybe other than the president. He knows better than anybody. And so the fact that he put out this statement the same day is interesting, after just giving them approval essentially to like put the statement out anyway. You know what I mean?
It's Russian disinformation, but also I don't want to look at it because in case it's not.
So crazy. Yeah, I think that's all I have on that story. Just interesting it came up again, the whole source of it, if it almost feels like they're giving Trump more ammo, or at least taking away ammo and talking points from Biden before this debate. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's going to have the moderators on his side, but Trump has some legitimate talking points that he can use other than just his record going against Biden's record.
Speaking of the debate, do you think SCOTUS is influenced by the timing of when the debate is?
Ooh.
And that they are withholding that decision
till Friday?
Wait, I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want the court to be influenced by such things, but I can't help but think that the debate moving to this week made SCOTUS hesitant to release a decision either today or last week. And now they've added 2 more days to the calendar. It kind of looks like they're saving that abortion decision and the immunity decision for either tomorrow or Friday.
Well, think about this. Okay, if Trump gets the immunity ruling in his favor, that is going to completely destroy a lot of the issues going on, right? Like the cases, right? If they give it to him tomorrow morning, that's going to give Biden very little time to prepare. I mean, he's been preparing for a week. All these talking points, probably going to talk about the Jack Smith stuff and all the things he did. And if he gets immunity in the morning, like, how is Biden going to be able to switch that and counter that?
Yeah, he might want to be running with like, my opponent's been indicted 90 something times.
Yeah.
Like he's probably going to get it wrong. And then, but then if he has this, but also you and I both think that SCOTUS won't do immunity at first. Do you still think that they're going to kick it down to a lower court for a hearing on official acts?
I think I could either see it happening that way, where they make him like disperse it out, like which acts are you specifically talking about? But I also could see them just giving him immunity, because I do think this immunity ruling is essentially giving Trump immunity for implementing devolution.
Yeah,
and so I do expect us to get that ruling before this upcoming election. And so I don't know the timing of things, how this plays out. Like if they kick it back down to the lower court to like be more specific, guys. But also I think if they're going to do that,
they might still be able to say something about immunity. They might still be able to say, look, presidents have immunity, and here's why, here's how. Now, we're kicking this down to a lower court in regards to the official acts, but this is our opinion on presidential immunity.
Yeah.
They could do both.
Devil's advocate of them stripping immunity from Trump, where it could still work out on a longer timeline is, you mentioned that Biden's team wouldn't have a lot of time based on something dropping tomorrow on immunity, right? But under the guise of they give Trump immunity, and how are they going to come up with new talking points? Let's say for the sake of argument that they actually do the opposite. They strip immunity from Trump. That's bait that Biden team is going to jump all over that day, right? And say, because they've been leaning into the Trump's a convicted felon talking points, much to the chagrin of Democrat strategists who actually think it's a bad idea to keep bringing up Trump the convicted felon. So if the immunity case does not go in Trump's favor, quote unquote, Biden's going to jump all over that and say, not only are you a convicted felon, but the Supreme Court has also ruled that you don't have immunity for presidential acts. The reason I say that that's a good thing and that's a trap is we've talked about why long-term that's a good thing. But from a public narrative, this is going to be one of the most watched events, the most watched political event of the year besides the election. We're going to have clips of Joe Biden, aka the regime, praising the Supreme Court for stripping presidents of immunity for acts in office. And we think that if that happens, that's going to boomerang on them down the line. So it's a perfect sort of narrative trap that seems to be a pattern with Trump, where he's the punching bag a little bit up on stage there, and Biden's going, you don't have immunity, the Supreme Court ruled against you, and then we're going to get to play that B-roll when these guys are up in front of trials, and they're like, you ran your campaign on this being a good decision by the Supreme Court, and now it's coming back to bite you in the ass. So this starts to show you the game theory of why either way it goes tomorrow, it might look good for the Biden regime in the short term, but they're just stepping deeper and deeper into the quicksand if they dive into it.
I feel like I'm disagreeing with you a lot more than usual tonight. I just don't see how that could possibly be the outcome here. The immunity rule, I just don't see how they don't give it to Trump in either outright or by passing it down. I just don't understand how they could rule in that way. And
what if they narrow it, but by the Biden team, what if they narrow it the way we want in an ideal world, and they define it, but the Biden team is able to spin the narrative that the immunity isn't going to apply to all acts, that Trump's going after or something like that. They could take aspects of it and try to straw man it.
Well, I don't think they'd get that specific, especially with Biden. Like I think based on the hints, like the attacks we've been getting on Alito and some like the attacks just on SCOTUS in general, we know there's still a leaker in there that they haven't caught. He's there. They're still leaking shit. They know what the ruling is ultimately going to be, and it has to be something that's going to be in Trump's. They've been working hard to discredit SCOTUS for a reason. So I just have to imagine that the ruling that we're going to get, whenever we get it, maybe they just leave it out of it and wait till after the debate altogether. but I have to imagine it's pro-Trump.
It's going to be pro-Trump, and it's going to be presidential immunity, no change, or presidential immunity slightly narrowed to allow for prosecution of corrupt acts, and or they're going to kick it down to a lower court for hearings on the official acts at issue here.
Yeah.
But either way, it's going to go in Trump's favor. Presidential immunity is a thing, and every president gets it, including Biden. He's going to get it too, it seems,
except he's not.
Unless I understand. I'm just saying.
I know.
So,
what you're saying.
So SCOTUS is going to. That's what happen. What I'm really wondering, what I'm trying to figure out, which is just, I'm just doing this for fun. What would be better if they drop it tomorrow morning or Friday? Because tomorrow morning, it sets everything up for the debate that night to be the key topic, robs Biden of some of the things he wants to say, gives Trump great ammo for things he wants to say. But if it doesn't happen, then it happens on Friday, it becomes the story, and then the debate story goes away too quickly.
Yeah, it has to be tomorrow.
So I'm thinking it has to be tomorrow morning or next week.
It's a theme.
What if they hold on to it all summer, and then we get to the fall session when they come back in session in October? Dare SCOTUS drop it in October as an October surprise?
Damn.
I think I saw Chris say something to this effect earlier that caught my eye, where he was talking about the timing, not necessarily of this specific decision, but of a lot of the stuff on the Supreme Court docket. And obviously this is the biggest one, presidential immunity, and saying, this was not supposed to be the timing of the presidential debate. So this whole conversation we're having, I thought it was a good observation by Chris to say, look at the last 2 summers, where the Supreme Court, by and large, did a bunch of shit that the establishment regime and all their useful idiots hated. That's where we got the Summer of Love, and we got all these ops that were out there going hot against the Supreme Court. Well, right now, all the oxygen in the room is being sucked up by this debate. And this debate wasn't supposed to be now. So one way of reading this is to say, this was a way for Trump and team to shield the Supreme Court while they're releasing these decisions. The machine, the narrative machine, is all focused on Trump versus Biden. You've got some flyers going out where they're saying, ooh, the presidential immunity looms over the debate. But if this debate wasn't happening right now, all of the narrative power of the machine would be focused on discrediting the Supreme Court, going against them, doing all the stuff that they did the last 2 years. So it's just another kind of wrinkle in it with the timing. I actually lean toward them doing it after the debate. You made some good points about how big it would be before, but it sort of feels like a 1-2 punch type of scenario if we're looking for good things for us, of Trump to have a performance or Biden to have just a horrible one Thursday night. The debate is a big enough story to take over one day in the info war, and then going into the weekend, like, we don't need the debate to carry into the weekend. It doesn't matter. It's gonna be a memes of Biden at the debate. It's not that important. And then we have something like this drop on a Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the theme of like lots of things are lining up for Trump to work for his benefit at the debate. It would fit with that to come afterwards. Do you think, like, what is bigger, the debate topic or the immunity ruling? Like, is it possible for one? Is it possible for one to take over the other?
I think immunity is bigger.
You mean in the narrative, in the public?
Yeah, I think same day, man. Like that'd be so kick ass, because you have the immunity thing in the morning, and that's the like highlight of the debate, and then both things carry through to the weekend.
Man, if we have a week where Julian Assange gets a plea agreement and is free, and then we have immunity decision, and we have the debate, what a week!
Yeah.
What happens if they rule in his favor all the way through on immunity? Does that get rid of the Washington D.C. Jack Smith case essentially?
The J6 case, yeah, that case is basically done. Although Jack Smith said that if this happened, he would still try to bring an obstruction charge against Trump, even if it meant having to impanel a new grand jury and say that Trump obstructed his investigation.
It's the same thing,
which is actually a slightly less cartoonish version of even the E. Jean Carroll thing. And that was, I know we don't talk about the Eugene Carroll thing a lot because it's so ridiculous, right? But my mother-in-law was down here last week and like hates Trump, Canadian, all the rest of it. But it was blowing her mind just talking about how that case went and that Trump's massive consequences that he faced were based on a statement he made after he was exonerated in the case. You know, it's like, I know that this is sometimes where we're in a bubble and we're like, oh, yeah, that's old news. That was some stupid clown case. Like, to a normie, I really do think that that the slings and arrows thing with Trump, it really is starting to have an effect. And that doesn't mean that people that hate Trump all of a sudden like him or feel bad for him. But I'm telling you, they are moving more. People who don't like Trump, but are otherwise good people, they are absolutely not arguing anymore that the Biden administration and the DOJ is not targeting him. Like, they might hate him and not mind that he's being targeted, but there is no longer a debate over whether or not he is being targeted. And that used to be a debate. You talk to people who hate Trump and they're like, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. They're just going after people who are criminals. But the E. Jean Carroll case is a perfect example of one where there was no crime, there was no conviction, and he still got greater consequences than any other citizen would have gotten if found guilty in that case. So it's like, this stuff is getting, the more cartoonish it gets, and Jack Smith would be another, it'd be the same type of template where, okay, I didn't get you on this, so I'm going to get you with a process crime on your way out the door.
But what about the classified documents case? What would immunity do there?
Not sure, and it's been a point of debate in the filings because Trump's team has argued that, look, everything having to do on Trump's part with those documents arriving at their destination, he did while president. He was president when the boxes were packed. He was president as they were gathering up things in the Oval Office and White House. The GSA was working for the Trump administration when they packed those boxes. Trump didn't personally pack them, staff did, and then they sent them down to Mar-a-Lago. Like, all of the things that happened, all the things, they'll say a defendant caused such and such to happen. Trump caused all of those things while president. And that's going to be their angle that his attorneys are going to argue to Judge Cannon. Yeah, Judge Cannon. If I recall correctly, the arguments they've made, and I'm pretty sure I do. So that's how it would apply there. Now, Jack Smith's team has already made and will make again an argument that no, it doesn't count, and here's why. And he's probably going to say because they obstructed later on. So the criminal acts actually happened not in January 2021; it happened post January 2021. So, but that's how that would play out. And then in Fulton,
They would almost have to give Trump immunity because
in Fulton he should get immunity, and that should be thrown out because it is part of a president's job to lobby and contact other officials and tell them, you got to do your job. I'm getting reports of such and such. There's no crime there in what president did with Fulton. So he should get it. He would get it there. And I don't think it would be that. Yeah, that they would handle that. I think the classified documents one is actually the more prickly one to unpack, but I still think he wins out on it.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I think the only thing that really remains is hush money conviction, and then Jack Smith trying to bring some new obstruction charge or impanel a new grand jury against him, which is going to look so desperate, so desperate. So I kind of want that to happen. The hush money thing, he could get some relief from it because he did sign some checks while president, but those weren't official acts, so I don't think he would.
It's fascinating. The Jack Smith thing is funny because they're trying to say it's not political or whatever, but he wasn't like established properly, right? So if he,
there's been a lot of arguments about that. There's been a lot of arguments about that.
They either admit that he's like, yes, okay, he was established properly and it's political, or it wasn't established properly and it's not legal. Like,
yeah, Judge Cannon had a hearing on it. Was it this week or last week where they were arguing that exactly?
Yeah,
and she didn't seem too friendly to Trump's team's arguments on it.
Interesting.
I do think it's funny that we bring this up with the hush money case. something that's kind of funny that gets lost a little bit in the noise here, where we've got a president. Like, think of, try to imagine not being in this bubble and being a normie who is aware of the narratives that bubble all the way to the surface. Right now, you've got Thursday, June 27th, a huge presidential debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And then whenever it happens, you're going to get this massive narrative on immunity related to Donald Trump. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it goes in his favor. And then a couple weeks from now, you might have that man sentenced to prison. So when you just look, like, we keep leaving that part out just because it's this,
July
like, it
11th,
seems so crazy, but it's kind of crazy to think about. If you're a normie and you're just seeing, like, these are the two presidential candidates, this is a huge thing, they're debating. Whoa, Trump, there's this huge Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is ruling on immunity for Donald Trump. He's in jail 2 weeks later. It's going to confuse a lot of normies, even ones who hate Donald Trump, because they're going to be thinking, wait a second, hold on. He's eligible to run for president, and he's debating on CNN, and the most generous Biden polls say that this election is neck and neck, and he's been granted immunity for official acts, and he's in prison? Like, even people who hate him, we've talked about in various ways, all of us have basically said, if you're looking for awakening, the more cartoonish and ridiculous this gets, the better it is. Like you just said with Jack Smith. So it's kind of funny that Donald Trump potentially going to prison temporarily, I believe, is like an afterthought right now. But depending on how the next couple of weeks play out, that really could be not just a thing within MAGA, but that could be a thing that I really do think could start to shift a lot of teetering normies and go, you guys are going a little nuts right now. And I don't think it's because they're going to feel super bad for Donald Trump. The irony of the media establishment painting all of us as MAGA extremists ever since January 2021 is that those normies are actually afraid of the establishment jailing Donald Trump because they think it's going to escalate this country at a time when it can't afford to be escalated. So they'd also be angry at the DOJ, even if they agreed that Trump is a bad orange man.
No arguments here, man.
Yeah.
Or we're doomed and everything's over.
Sometimes that's how the chat portrays it.
Yeah, true.
The wild boar refrain.
I'm ready to get to the rants, guys, if you are. Unless you have any closing I'm trying to remember what else there was. I think that's everything. But yeah, we are covering the debate tomorrow, so make sure you guys stay tuned here. Don't forget to give this stream a thumbs up. Also, thanks again to CB Distillery and EasyRx for sponsoring tonight's stream. With that, we'll do the rants here. Earth Garden Living says, the sunflower above Kyle's head is simply an illumination of his innate greatness.
That is very kind. Thank you.
He manifested it out of his chi.
Then what do the towels mean? What do those illuminate?
I haven't seen my cat this whole stream.
Yeah, I've been waiting for him to disrupt your broadcast here. The new Prue.
Lock him in the basement by accident.
The new Prue. Someone keep a stopwatch to show the time they give to Biden versus Trump. And then can Badlands keep a running time counter on screen under each candidate? It'd be difficult to do. I don't know. Talk to Zach, maybe figure it out. I actually won't be on the stream tomorrow because my kid has T-ball. But I think Zach or Patrick or somebody's going to be running it. So we'll see what we can do. We'll try to make it fun like we always do. Final Demand says, don't they get a pen and paper? Trump will have a Sharpie. I hope he writes liar. And every time Joe speaks, he just holds it up. Seriously, though, this is them telling us how they're going to.
You know what? I'm
Trump.
in favor of the full SNL Suck It Trebek. Dude, it would be hilarious. Give him a whiteboard. They cut his mic the whole time. And he just starts drawing hangman pictures.
That'll be too funny. Yeah, I'm just so curious how it's going to go. I mean,
mother was a whore.
Yeah, seriously. The new Prue also says, also keep a counter of times Trump is interrupted versus Biden by the mods.
Yeah, there'll be people keeping track of all that stuff, I'm sure.
For sure. Papa DB1, term limits on staffers. an argument here. 1027JS says, "Hi guys, how's it going, Joe? Godwin's 273618. This is for BB. Did you hear about the shark attack in Oahu at North Shore? Apparently, he was an actor in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He was killed. Shark bit off his arm and leg."
But the article that announced his death made sure to tell us sharks are not dangerous. After explaining in detail how it ripped 2 of his limbs from his body and devoured him.
I hate the ocean. That's because I have a fear of what is swimming in it. So
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So yeah, I'm with you, BB. I just normally give you shit about it. Postal for Hope. Kyle, looking great. Healthy looking as well. God bless.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Merfster7 says, "Did you catch Trump say the fake debate when he spoke in Philly?" Interesting. He's telling us. The timing thing is interesting because neither is technically candidate yet, but it's before both Joe Biden gets Zoom called in, like nominated, and before Trump's potentially going to jail. Like,
yeah,
definitely interesting. But anyway, Carrie Prejean says, "For the true economic stats about inflation, unemployment, and money supply, go to shadowstats.com. Inflation spiked 20% and is back to about 13%. Unemployment spiked to 35%. 25%. It's insane."
Well, the biggest, you're breaking up a little bit, John. Oh, there you are. The biggest thing too, and again, I know people who follow this stuff understand this, but normies are like, some of them are just starting to understand that when they say inflation, they're not saying total inflation. They're saying the rate at which things are getting more expensive is 13%. That doesn't mean that it's gone from 20 down to 13. It means things went up 20% and then 13%. So it's like, that's what a lot of people don't understand, that when they're like, oh, it's only 3%, plus 3%, plus 3%, plus 3%, right? It's like, it's funny that some of the simplest things in economics are not taught to the American people, because
but that's also how the Biden administration can lie. They're like, "Oh yeah, inflation's down 7%."
That's what they say. They say
That's what they say.
They say inflation's down. What they're actually saying is the rate at which things are getting much worse. Like if you were engulfed in flames, if I doused you in gasoline and engulfed you in flames, which I'm not going to do, just for the record, and you burn for 10 minutes and then you're done burning, the rate at which you are on fire is significantly lower than it was 5 minutes earlier.
That's pretty much what they're doing.
But you're already dead. That's pretty much what, that's our economy.
Yeah, but most people just like, they don't care about the stats. They care about their personal wallet and ability to live the lifestyle they want. And a lot of people are struggling to do that right now. Snore Dizzle, what's the over-under on CNN muting Biden when he's fumbling and mumbling? I say 3.5. It'll be interesting to see if they actually mute Biden, like while he's talking, like cut him off to cover for him. Yeah, I mean,
he does have a tendency to interrupt and to ramble on.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
It would be funny though, because people keep, MAGA keeps thinking he's going to be the Sleepy Joe, but if all the memes come true and they load him up, that's when we could get that version of him, Kyle, which would be good.
Yep.
Carrie Prejean says money supply jumped to 120% increase and is back to 30% growth year over year. Hello, Zimbabwe. It's going to get worse, much worse. Oh, didn't we see a coup today? And like, where was that at again?
Bolivia. Attempted coup. It was put down within like 10 minutes.
Just crazy. Like I saw the face to face of like the current president and the guys like doing the coup. I was like, why are you not killing the president? Like, isn't that what a coup does? Like you take him out, but they're just like talking and then they all get arrested. I thought it was weirdest,
very bizarre,
weirdest narrative seeding or something that I've seen in a while. Muffingate 69. Do you find it interesting that Stephen Baldwin is talking about the fourth PSYOP group in his unhinged rants on X? I personally do not. And I think it's silly that like a bunch of people in the room were like, oh my God, Steve Baldwin posted another fourth PSYOP. Like, are we supposed to think that he's part of the Q team or something? Like, I don't know. It's cool that people are waking up to the fourth PSYOP group stuff.
Time. He was in the usual suspects. I don't know. It's all coming together.
I got nothing.
Citizen 1214, thank you for the rant. I'm not going to read it though. Carrie Prejean, Assange going to trial may be why he was freed. His evidence won't be evidence in a public trial. Do you think he'll be as bold to release really damaging evidence against those who jailed him? I did see that. I don't remember who posted it, but is it true that the Podesta emails are now back on WikiLeaks and they weren't before?
I'm not sure. I've seen contradictory reports about WikiLeaks had already removed that stuff, or it wasn't removed. It was just the website was overloaded for a short time. I've seen conflicting reports about it. I'm not really interested in those emails and stuff that was already made public. I'm interested in Assange turning over stuff that we haven't seen, and all that could have happened. You know, one of the things I'm looking for with Assange's case that I'm going to keep checking the docket is to see if there's a 5K1 letter or there's any sort of sentencing submission that indicates his cooperation, his help, something in future investigations. So
yeah,
I didn't find anything super strong in the plea agreement other than what I had already said on the show earlier. But I do strongly believe that the U.S. could have just waited a little while longer, and then he would have been extradited and they could have taken him to trial. They didn't want to do that. And I think it's because he had that evidence. I also think it's partly because that Schulte guy who gave WikiLeaks the Vault 7 stuff was recently sentenced after 3 trials. That happened in February of this year. And I kind of wonder if there was some reason why that needed to be wrapped up first before this Assange thing was wrapped up. I don't know. Stuff's happening behind the scenes. Probably on secret sealed dockets that we can't see for now.
Yeah, and it could be, I think we've had to reframe, we meaning when you're following the Q drops back in 2017, 18, so many of them are hitting lately, but I think we've also had to reframe some of our sort of fantasies or images of how that stuff was going to be made public. So when you say these backroom classified documents, evidence, etc., it's almost likely that that's how this stuff would come out, right? Like, we're going to see trials in the future, and then as you're going through court documents, you'll be able to put the pieces together of where did they get this information? And then all of a sudden, that's the type of stuff that will give us this sort of hindsight confirmation, where I think the reason I say that is because I think a lot of people have been picturing, including me in the past, like Julian Assange walking into a courtroom as a state's witness or something like that, which it's probably unlikely that would happen, just because that's not typically how these things go. Typically it is. I mean, from the perspective of Julian Assange, you probably wouldn't actually want that to be happening because, I mean, he's already infamous and famous and everything, but you don't really want to be in the public spotlight in these sort of trials directly handling this information. So if it's all already been handed over, he doesn't have to be the one in court delivering things the way that people have pictured in the past.
Yep.
Alternative 94 says, love the show, guys. Quick question for John. I'm trying to send all the Devolution recap series to friends and realize part 5 is missing. Any chance you can post it, please? I haven't done that one yet. I skipped 5 for this last Sunday, but I'm going to pick back up on it, part 5, probably next week. Afraid Awakening leaves a rant. Thank you. I'm probably not going to read it, though, just because it's not nice. Lisa Lady, this is nothing.
0% about that, Fredo.
Do you want me to read it since you had to comment on it?
No, I'm just saying Fredo's a bitch, and he can go fuck himself.
Hey, Lisa Lady, this has nothing to do with the show. I just want Just Human's reaction to a 3-minute video. So let's post the link in the private chat. I don't think we're going to watch a 3-minute video right now, though. Afraid Awakening apologizes, Bernie Bright, so you prematurely...
Don't care. I forgive you. I just also, you can go fuck yourself too. Like,
okay, it's fine. Thomas Time 76, Julian Assange for VP. Oh, VP is supposed to be announced tomorrow.
What? According to who?
Well, fake news. The VP is allegedly going to be at the debate, not announced. So I can't wait for just like a whole host of characters to be there, and everybody like, oh, it's Vivek, he was there, or it's Burgum, he was there.
There's going to be people showing up there just to get mentioned as a possibility.
Yep.
Probably some guy who's really kind of short and bald-headed will be there.
I will say, like, I do farm the in-laws for sort of ultra normie takes. Yeah. And man, normies are really interested in the VP thing. The first political thing my mother-in-law asked me was like, what do you think it's going to be? And I was like, it doesn't really matter. She was like, actually, it's a huge deal. And I'm like, well, I get okay. So then I played the game, but it's interesting that's good. They are. I'm
glad they think it's a big deal because it really isn't. But I'm glad they think it is because maybe Trump will actually sway some voters with his VP pick.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll see. Saltmuncher ODA, your guys' mic volumes were all perfect tonight.
I don't know how I've moved mine around like all over.
Yeah, you've been
place.
Carrie Prejean, come on, Kyle. Hunter is a CIA asset? ? Don't get him started. Carrie Prejean.
He is.
He's as much of a CIA asset as my D. Say my right arm if that's too salacious. Crackhead, child raping, whore banging Hunter is a cluster on fire on 2 wheels. Thank you for the rant. Info Warrior.
Very colorful.
Assange case was a devil proof. It's a continuity of Trump administration. Now the Assange cult can get their pardon because he's finally been convicted. Can't pardon someone presumed innocent.
That's true.
I see the argument, but I don't know if there was ever any real discussion of him being pardoned during Trump's administration.
No, there wasn't. Yeah,
there wasn't.
Care Prejean, BB, great point. I'll sign the letter, but I don't want to look at the evidence. Hopefully that won't hunt at trial of these scumbag traitors akin to just following orders.
By the way, the other extraordinarily salacious trial that I know the ladies in the chat have probably been following is the Karen Reed trial in Boston. And holy shit, that thing has become such a cartoon. Jury's been deliberating for a couple of days now. I have a feeling they're going to convict her and throw away the key. And man, if you've never seen a wine mom's riot, you're going to see one in Boston next week if that happens. It's crazy. It's like the reason I thought of it is because I'm like, there's police officers on the stand where this police officer is found dead outside the home of another police officer. So his girlfriend is being convicted of hitting him with her car and leaving, but none of the police officers at this party saw the dead body on their front lawn for 6 hours. Nor did any of them come to the door when there was an investigation into his death on their front lawn. Nor did anyone conducting the investigation ask if they could go inside of the house where this man was invited to the party. So it's like these detectives have been on the stand with the defense attorney asking, is it normal to not knock on the door of a residence where there's a party and a dead body is found on the front lawn, like of one of the guests? Is this not standard operating procedure? And these detectives are just bold-faced saying, yeah, we didn't think it was necessary. Like, it's pretty amazing. It's like if it was a movie, you'd be like, this is not realistic at all. That's not how cover-ups work. They don't just say, yeah, we didn't investigate anybody.
Yeah, the first I heard of this was yesterday when your wife said that in the chat or whatever.
She's become Kyle. Like she has literally watched like 60 hours of court testimony, and so it's interesting because now she's using all the Kyle lingo, talking about affidavits and everything else.
Carrie Prejean says, BB, great argument on the confusion of the normies with Trump exoneration and conviction. Lefties like my wife and great friends hang on to what about J6? He caused an insurrection. Hopeless.
Caprajon, plenty of wives in the world. You've said that before.
Kitsko says Trump asked if he should be nice and let him talk or go in hot. I think we'll get a little bit of both. I think he'll be measured, calm when he should be, and then he'll attack Biden when he should as well. I think he'll be solid.
Yep.
I do think we'll get kind of a friendly Trump. I think that's a good call.
Yeah. Caprajon, great show, gentlemen. Very good rambling topics. Covered a lot of ground.
Thanks,
I think we're caught up. Is that all of them? I forgot to do the actual rant thing tonight, so did you go through the chat?
The boys catch up on the Karen Reed trial for next week.
Yeah, Kyle, when are you going to read those case documents?
I haven't. Yeah, I can't say that I'm all that interested in it. I mean, although it does sound interesting, like as far as like entertainment value and whatnot. You know.
I said I'm waiting for the Netflix documentary, then I'll get into it.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
My insanity though, like that, I've been looking at it and being like, the attorney representing her is like this high-powered LA attorney who's been involved in the Kevin Spacey case, like all this kind of stuff in this local Boston murder case. And I'm seeing like this whole industry. My wife's showing me YouTube videos today of local female citizen journalists who were not citizen journalists, who are doing blogs about the case, and they're reconstructing the crime scene, and they're playing defense. And I was like, you know what? If you wanted to run an op to get a totally different demographic totally involved in how the justice system works, you would maybe boost I'm not saying they created this trial, but you might boost it into the national spotlight in this kind of a way. It's definitely not a bad thing to have people engaging with it.
Can't disagree with that, without having seen any of it. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. Okay, I'm good to get out of here, guys. So, good show. It's fun. Hit the thumbs up. Are you guys doing Defected this Sunday?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Okay. We will be there.
Good deal.
I'm doing Power Hour.
What?
Next week? On the 3rd.
Oh, is next week
Oh yeah. We're doing Power Hour on July 3rd.
I'll be here, I think.
I'll be available.
We will let you know. I probably won't actually. I definitely won't be on the show Saturday because I'll be at a wedding. And Patrick will be coming to Minnesota for that thing Sunday. I don't know the status of Saturday's Power, but we'll keep you posted.
Okay.
But yeah, let's close out with this video here, and we will see you guys next week, maybe.
Thanks, everyone.
If we go behind the podiums, you can see two green lights. When they're on, they signal to the candidate his microphone is on. When the green lights are off, they signal to the candidate his microphone is off. And so let's say I'm answering a question. My light is green and I'm speaking. Phil's microphone is off and his green lights are not illuminated. He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like.
CNN sucks and Joe Biden has dementia. Fuck Joe Biden and fuck CNN. Let's try the opposite. My microphone is now on. Victor's microphone is off, and he's going to interrupt me.
Fuck Joe Biden, fuck the Democrats, and fuck CNN. Trump 2024, bitches. Let's go.
CNN's production team has shared this demonstration with the campaigns.